birthday. You know what that means? It means Lucas should open his cooler and get a beer out.
I'm drinking the last of my Christmas beer, Drunken Santa.
What do you do with a drunken Santa? What do you do with a drunken Santa?
Which, by the way, I just reminded myself is 9.4% alcohol. So by the end of this, I'm going to be good.
Jeez. Great. It's so close. It's almost next year.
I literally, after the past 2 times we've done this, I don't know how to feel about that. I'm just...
Yeah, so this is the end of the year show, and we've got some special things to do. We will do some of our normal things, and we'll do some different things. But first, how are you, sir?
I'm well. It's busy in a bar leading up to New Year's. I have a lot of booze that has to go on shelves. A lot of booze.
I would imagine. Do you have any? I forgot what you told me your work schedule was, but do you have to do like all the holiday things the whole time?
Actually, I get off before midnight on New Year's Eve, so I am going to be trolling back down. I looked at places that were open and were free to get in. So I will be hanging out at ML Rose for a bit come the ball drop.
Very nice.
So, because I'm not going to be at my work. I'm not even allowed to drink at my work, which I find is not a bad scenario.
I mean, at least it was, a rule that you were told going in, as opposed to a rule that was randomly changed on you halfway through.
Right.
I know you've experienced that before.
What I worked, because for those of you who don't know the story, when I worked for ML Rose, when I started, employees could sit and drink at the bar, and then about 5 months before I moved on, they changed that, and they said employees. I'm like, I'm off the clock, and it's been fine before. Like, well, some people abused it. I'm like, punish those people.
Right.
I normally drop like $45 every Sunday on you.
Yeah, you would.
And that you paid me, and you get back.
Yeah. You typically want to punish the problems, not the not problems. But what do we know? Anyway, well, that's good. Glad to hear that you're going to be able to get a little partying in. I think we're going to kick it mellow style, unless someone literally in the neighborhood comes up with some kind of easily accessible chill out. It is not nearly as cold. Actually, today I left the house in a hoodie to go do some shopping, and I took it off at lunch because I was like, I'm overdressed. It's 47. Actually, at lunch it was 51 out. So, I'm too hot now. And even walking outside in hardly anything, just like PJs and moccasins and a t-shirt earlier, it was 40 degrees and it felt great. So
now here it's in the 60s, and I'm back here. Like, of course, it being the South, I now have my fan back on.
Right. Well, if you're just joining us, welcome to Brewing Controversy. I am Lucas. This is David. And if you're here, say hello. If you don't want to say hello, you don't have to say hello. And throughout the show, you're welcome to throw us whatever commentary may come to mind. We always open the show now. Before we get into our top 5 topics of the year, we've each brought a secret list we haven't shared with each other of our top 5 topics of the year. And there is no prescribed reasoning. They can be best, funniest, most important, whatever the justification is. We'll talk about it when we get to those. But before we do those, in lieu of our normal couple of topics, we're going to do that whole rundown and discussion of those topics. We're going to do our happy hour, which we have upgraded slightly. So the new and improved Hot Take Happy Hour is upon us. And we've got a few fun topics for today. And we're going to run through that with you and talk about the news of the week, of the day. We try to do about 4 or 5 topics, but one of these has a couple of special feature videos that I just got shown before this, and it's very interesting. Can't wait for that. But I'll kick off with this Southwest thing. If you've turned on any sort of media news receiving device or seen any feed of any information, you know that Southwest is A, kind of in deep shit, and B, has completely screwed all the pooches in the kennel. I mean, it's so fucked. And here's what's weird for me, like, and I was actually thinking about, because I think a lot about brands that I personally love and have a high affinity for. I have 5 top brands in my life. Most people could guess them in very short order, and then I have like maybe 10 that I would consider top, or you know, I have a top 10 that the lower 5 might be more flexible. And I would consider Southwest one of those brands I often really had a good affinity for, and they've been a go-to for me on transportation. But I'm hearing a lot of loyal Southwest people saying, "Fuck this! I'm never going back to them."
And you shouldn't.
This winter weather apocalypse that we went through walloped both major locations for them, that being Chicago and Denver. But then all of their other cheap shit phone in, delay as far as investments and upgrades came back to bite them in the ass in the handling of this event. So apparently now we know that their IT department has been up their butt for years, saying our systems suck, they're old, they're impractical, this is going to all hit the fan one day. And as is typical in corporate greed, nobody gave a fuck and didn't listen and didn't do the thing that the smart people in the room were saying to do.
And it gets worse. It gets worse because Southwest. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the racket that is the airline industry, with the exception of Southwest, the airline industry in the United States exists for one purpose, and that's as a tax soak. Not for the government to pour taxes into it, although the government does offer subsidies. No, it's so that really rich people can offload their gains by buying stock and lending money in airlines. Because then they lose the money, and then they write it off on their taxes. There we go. Boom. United works this way. American works this way. All of them, none of them turn a profit. And the thing is, their investors don't want them to turn a profit. They want them to continue losing money so that they can lose money with them and write it off on their taxes. Southwest is
on the government teat. They are
right.
They're huge corporate welfare recipients on our.
So the fact that Southwest was like, oh well, we're turning a profit, but what were they doing with that profit? They weren't like United or American or any of these other companies taking any money and putting it back into the airline, other than upgrading aircraft. The SkySolver system that they have been using is more than 20 years old and requires phone in.
Yeah.
There's no app. There's no log on to a website.
We're talking for staffing issues, correct?
Yeah. For staffing and route direction. Not just for staffing. How they route the planes?
Yeah.
It's been bad for a while, and you got to look at them and be like, so you were getting ready to offer a dividend when you hadn't upgraded your any of your software solutions in 20 years.
And on one hand, you could look at it and say, well, they're so affordable, right? But at what point is that sacrifice too great? Like, people don't like Spirit because it's affordable, but your seat might also not be bolted to the fuselage. There's all sorts of compromises that are made with the cheaper carriers, and I always considered Southwest to be a positive brand experience, the highest end of the lower end. And when you're looking at some of the competition, I mean, there was no contest in almost every case. And now I'm in a holding pattern. Not that I've got anything to complain about. There are people literally still fucking stranded in completely strange locations where their goddamn luggage is. So I'm not really inconvenienced by this, but I can't even begin to plan my April trip to LA because I don't even want to start fucking with Southwest's schedule or pricing and looking at any of that. I'm likely to shift to American. I think it's American that'll do okay from Chicago to LA. It's American or Delta. One of them is usually laughably overpriced, and the other one will be a good deal. And it kind of depends on where you're going. But the Southwest usually beats them all, unless you're going to a place the Southwest doesn't normally specialize in, like Atlanta. Delta, always kicks ass for Atlanta, but American, I think, tends to kick ass for LA.
Yeah,
I think the first half of that trip by train.
No, I mean, I didn't tell you about Mom's whole sojourn on the 23rd.
Oh, shit.
So her flight got canceled. It was a whole thing for Christmas. She was supposed to be in Richmond with my sister. What?
Which airline?
Allegiant.
Oh, speaking
which
of
is
budget airlines.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Allegiant's not Spirit. I think Spirit, if I'm not making the wrong comparison, from what I'm gathering, and I've never bothered with Spirit, but I've heard people tell me about it, Spirit is like the Dollar Tree. Whereas Allegiant's like Dollar General. And then Southwest kind of maybe Big Lots. Or might eke up to Walmart, but it ain't Macy's.
But I mean, I feel for all these people because she had to wait. So I got her out the door just in time, the morning of the 23rd, with all the ice and everything else, an hour late, but she got there. Mm-hmm. Then they cancel her flight after 2 hours.
Okay. So
then she has to wait for 2 hours for her bags to get offloaded off the plane. And here was the worst part. The entire conveyor belt system froze.
Oh, boy.
So for those of you who don't know how most some airports do it different, Nashville is pretty cut and dry simple, which is there's a giant conveyor belt, and it goes all the way outside the building, right? Mm-hmm. And then comes back in the building. So all the baggage handlers have to do is take the bags off the plane and put them on the conveyor belt, and the conveyor belt will take them into the building. Well, the part of the conveyor belt, obviously, that was outside was never designed to operate in 0-degree weather.
Which is one of the things. We're going to talk about some shit here in a minute that we may or may not pardon Tennessee for, but in this case, I think I can pardon a little bit of that. But good God. Yeah. So,
yeah, that was the whole thing about her getting her bag, and then me trying over the phone to guide Mom to how to get an Uber from the airport back to the house. And then, of course, the awkward moment of, well, I have to go to work now because I scheduled shifts because you weren't going to be here.
Right. Oh, boy. Well, it's going to be interesting to see Southwest recover from this, if they can. I kind of wonder, they've canceled something on the order of 15,000 flights over the last several days, and they're losing shit tons of revenue, and now they owe payouts in the millions, if not billions.
The last time they had an event like this that was about half as big, they ended up owing $75 million. This time it's likely going to reach into probably about $300 million in losses.
How that can even be feasible economically to get through. I mean, without just saying, fuck it, we're bankrupt. I mean, I just don't know. I guess we'll see. I have absolutely no patience for a lot of this stuff. And the shit that went down in Nashville really got my goat. I'm sure you saw this with the cops.
That.
Yeah. So for those...
here's the thing. I mean,
you can go search it if you want to see the originals. We're not going to make you sit through the video. But essentially, the Southwest desk staff in Nashville called the airport cops to clear out the people that they had basically fucked over with their company's failures. And the cops did typical cocky cop bullshit where the lady's like, but I have a ticket. He said, yeah, but your ticket was canceled, so now you're trespassing. Get out. Like, okay, motherfucker. Thanks. And what's best about this is that these were a lot of people from out of town. So essentially, you now have all the media, like even the Gannett-owned Tennessean corporate goon pricks are writing about, like, this is a big black eye on hospitality here in our city. And
Well,
world news is covering this around the globe as a ridiculous embarrassment to Nashville and Southwest and all of that.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. On one, I think what he was very bad, and I think what was happening was the gate agents were being very bad at communicating what they wanted people to do. Because if you listen to him and you finally like listen to the entire thing and kind of get what his gist is, his he shouldn't have been threatening people. What he was trying to ask them to do is he's like, hey,
arrest, which is the biggest problem here. It's not
yeah, he
manage
bullied his way
crowd.
through this.
Yeah, exactly.
What he
the classic when you only have a hammer.
Yeah. What he was trying to get them to do was to go out past security, say, "Hey, listen, your flight's not coming. You're in a secured area. We have to make room for other people whose flights might take off. You need to go talk to the ticket agent." And the problem is, a lot of people didn't understand what he was trying to say, which is, and because people may get confused by the terminology. The person at the gate is called the gate agent.
Right. Right.
The person all the way at the front of the airport at the big desks where you drop your luggage, that's the ticketing agent.
Yeah.
And that's who Southwest wanted them to go talk to. And that wasn't being made very clear.
Well, there's also a certain amount of Karening going on here, right? Like, you have the gate agent just resorting to calling the airport cops. Well, what about fucking BNA staff and management? Their corporate asses should have come downstairs and dealt with the communications and the issues inside of it. I know. I'm asking people that almost entirely exist on the government committee to come and do non-bureaucratic, non-office PR. I get it, but
I mean, I'm just trying to imagine. Like, do they even know how to wear pants? I'm just imagining these people like up in in their BNA office, being like, I literally just come here to eat lunch.
Well, the funny thing is, the thing that gets me is these fucking people, like, they're Johnny on the spot to make videos and announcements bragging about the expansion of the airport and all this stuff, but they have absolutely no ability, apparently, to function in the moment. And I guess that pretty much applies to government bureaucrats across the board. But
well, I mean, but especially like when it comes to semi-private outfits like BNA, right? Which, I mean, you keep on saying like it's a government outfit, and it kind of is, but it's more a private enterprise.
The Nashville Airport Authority is just as much a private government organization as NES or any other, MTA or anything else. David's going to like knock his whole room over for us live. So, I don't really know what the right solution was, but I know the wrong solution was the cops. Especially if you're going to bring some fucking dumbass fucking, has got his one little bullet in his pocket because he's the fucking airport police. And there are actual federal people there that can handle really bad shit. He's just there to like be a glorified traffic ticket writer if nothing goes down. And he's going to come in and try to deal with, talking to humans. So always a bad idea to try to employ random fucking cop flunky to talk to human beings. Let's shift gears to another blunder. David and I were arguing a little bit about this, but basically the power grid has been a big piece of the news cycle when you look at this winter weather event, right? But there are different aspects of it. So we're both incensed by the domestic terrorism that we clearly have repeating itself over and over in this country. And one of those happened during the storms. And then there's the fact that nobody's doing jack fuck about it, apparently. Like, all you hear is, well, it would cost a lot to secure all the substations. Really, Cletus? Because ask George W. how much it would have cost to pay better attention about domestic terrorism, right? Like, all it would have taken is a bunch of white dudes with airplanes to still ignore things like planes likely to be used as weapons. What kind of warning do we need? But they're not doing anything. And then you have the whole Nashville rolling blackout, TVA not communicating anything to anybody, and then the Titans running every fucking light bulb they own in the stadium the night before the game at the same time as the mid-state running rolling blackouts. So I've been all kinds of grumpy from way up here where we enjoyed pretty much stable power because I saw a lot of my friends and family like, well, there's blackouts again. Which the blackouts themselves, I'm on the fence. David's giving TVA more grace. I'm not.
Well, okay, here's how I look at TVA. And you have to understand, the TVA is a 100-year-old quasi-government agency that literally since 1930 hasn't had to talk to anyone. Right? It's entirely possible that, that there are employees who were literally born in the dam and are still working it. They're like the Morlocks from H.G. Wells' The Time Machine. It's entirely possible. The TVA has no reason to talk to anyone. They just run the dams. If one of them gets fuzzy, then one of them picks up the phone and says, hey, we got to open the floodgates or the dam's going to break. Or they call the Army Corps of Engineers and they say, you have to come and fix this. You don't actually have to ever see them come out of the dam, right?
Use of the hydropower.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, this is a 100-year-old agency with a whole slew of 100-year-old dams, and they don't have to talk to anyone or do shit. I mean, even the coal-fire plants the few coal-fire plants that they have, they literally, they're so self-contained that they literally just have little ponds that basically tend to themselves, where they slough off, and like only once in like a long time have they had any problem where a dam, a dirt burn that was designed to hold back their coal slurry failed. But the rest of the time, they just simply exist in the background. And then you have little utilities all over the state that just buy power from them, and no one ever has to talk to them.
Here's my report about this, David. Somewhere, I think I have a whole like bone to pick column with electrical utility shit. TVA, somewhere in their ranks, could make a job for a plucky 25-year-old, preferably HBCU graduate who needs their first job in communications, and fucking have someone whose job it is to talk to people. Just the same as I said NES for all these years, should have goddamn created a job for likewise a young IT software development graduate from an HBCU to create a payment gateway so that everybody in fucking Nashville didn't have to pay fucking third-party carpetbagging motherfuckers to process their goddamn payments online. There's job creation that is being failed in these idiots, and then you see it play out. You see it play out in TVA, and here's how I know TVA didn't communicate jack shit. I have some friends that live technically in the Mount Juliet city limits, and their description of their experience with rolling blackouts was no one knew it was happening until everyone started to freak out, and the Mount Juliet police had to find out what was happening and then turn around and inform the community, no, we're not under attack. No, there's no real problem other than we were just told that there are rolling blackouts, BT dubs. When the cops in the same town that have the psycho tent church that's halfway up Trump's butt don't know
halfway?
What's going to happen.
No. They have completely passed through all the way through the Trump. They have invented their own new Trump to be up the ass of.
There's just a continuation.
But I mean, again, the TVA hasn't had to talk to anyone. When they built the dams, they didn't talk to anyone. They're just like, hey, no, never mind, bye. And the next thing farmer knows is there's 10 feet of water in his field, right?
Football angle real quick, and then I'm going to hand over to you for the domestic terror thing that was really the top of this. The football angle for me, at first, when I heard people talk about it, they should cancel the game. Well, okay. I was on that train, and then I realized, there's no good way out. The Titans and NFL were in a shit sandwich because the TVA didn't fucking tell them anything. If TVA might have actually shared the possibility, hey, you know what? If this gets bad enough, we're going to have rolling blackouts. You may not want to even fly the whole Bills organization into town because A, they're not going to be able to fly out, and B, we might have to like tell you to cancel the game. But the fact that they were just sitting there with big glowing, throbbing cock of lighting, just fucking while the whole fucking mid-state is having blackouts. I mean, again, who runs PR for some of these motherfuckers? I don't get it. There should have been somebody in a role similar to mine running down the hall going, "Stop! Stop! What the fuck are you trying to do to us?"
Wait, you're gonna tell Bud Adams not to do something? I want to see that happen.
Bud Adams wouldn't give a fuck about the daily function of a damn thing in that place.
Of course he does. If you tell him he has to turn off a light, do you think? But you know what Bud Adams is going to do? Bud Adams is going to go find like a small like hydro-powered sun that he can buy and put it in the middle of his house. You tell me to turn something off.
So the domestic terror piece of it, because of all these are all inconveniences and gripes for the most part. But the domestic terror angle on this is a really bad problem, because if you thought that the rolling blackouts or the other challenges of the grid in any given location in the United States these last several days was a problem, wait till Bubba and his little brigade of half-limp dick fucking insurrectionist pricks continue to fuck around and not find out.
Well, I mean, and one of the things that I learned as I was going through this was, it isn't just that, there was the one in North Carolina, but this has actually been going on for a while, right? Washington State had 4 power stations attacked in the midst of this. But it's been going on for at least a little bit, and they're trying to trace it back to where this began. It seems to have actually started about 2 years ago, and they can't really tell if it's any sort of coordinated thing, but it is starting to become obviously a much more prevalent thing. And obviously, if you're having a natural disaster, this is very much related to some of this. It's hard to tell where the impetus for this is coming from. I would generally blame accelerationists for this. And for those of you who don't know what accelerationism is, accelerationism is the idea that in order for us to achieve our very often violent, bigoted political ends, what we have to do is continually make things worse. And then that will trigger some sort of uprising that we can ride the chaos into our crazy ass anti-government, anti-whatever, fantasy. And somehow, in the chaos, we will seize control. And for those of you who aren't familiar, the Boogaloo Boys are primarily like you'll see them sometimes. Sometimes you'll see the Boogaloo Boys with Nazis, and sometimes you'll see the Boogaloo Boys for some reason showing up with Antifa. And you're like, did Antifa invite these guys? And they'll be like, no, we have no fucking clue who these are. And they're there to cause violence and to try and create chaos with the hope that they can break things more. So the problem is that the federal government has done a very bad job at dealing with these accelerationists, and they're gonna continue to at least make things worse. Now, whether or not, I think one of the things that we have to be aware of is we actually need to blame the people responsible. Be like, oh, right-wing nut jobs are behind this, and the problem is name and shame is not happening enough in the media.
Oh no.
Because of course naming and shaming Antifa or Black Lives Matter is easy, right? Because they're like, oh, we're being fair and balanced. But the problem is, again, if you look at the statistics, the vast majority of the violence are right-wing terrorists. And they're going to continue to do this and continue to blow shit up. And we're just going to... I at this point, considering some of the things that I heard about from the FBI, about FBI agents being like, well, why should we go after the insurrectionists? They were doing the exact same stuff as the Black Lives Matter folks, weren't they?
Well, when you
like, holy shit.
When you describe this process, it sounds like one of my favorite Guns N' Roses songs. There's I don't know how familiar you are, or how familiar some people watching might be, but the song "Civil War" features a quote that is a little bit dicey on where it came from. There's something about a guerrilla officer who was credited with this quote, probably Peruvian officer. But anyway, we practice selective annihilation of mayors and government officials, for example, to create a vacuum. Then we fill that vacuum. When you say what you just explained, that's the line that plays in my head, and I've been familiar with that particular line of Axl Rose prose since I was a teenager, and that's always like been there, from the songs. Like, it's just sitting there, and I'm thinking, that's a very logical statement. And now you're describing it by these right-wing twats. So, yeah. Well, speaking of right-wing twats and lies, holy God, Santos, man, Jesus. So if you are somehow living under some volume of stone and you don't know about Santos, New York, I don't know what district or what part of town, David, you may know.
New York 3rd.
New York 3rd. And didn't he...
I'm going to go look up what part of New York that is real fast.
Yeah, I have like 3,000 tabs open for the show already. You do some references because I'm afraid. So Santos essentially is a Republican...
oh, of course. It's Long Island.
Okay, Long Island area, Republican representative, freshman to the House, part of the extremely tiny, thin, itty-bitty, smaller than Trump's cock-sized majority that the Republicans managed to eke out in the House. And it turns out that this sumbitch, basically, he's a whole fake person. Like, we just keep learning more shit that this guy, in the process of running for office, just heaped on the fictions. The latest headline is Santos's claim about his mother and 9/11 faces scrutiny amid his other lies. So George Santos, lied about being Jewish. Kind of?
Oh, no, it was, well, I'm Jew-ish, not right. I'm Jewish.
Which I've heard that joke from friends before, but it was because they don't necessarily follow traditions. They're still Jewish, but they would make the joke. Apparently it's a pretty common joke if you're Jewish, but you're like lightweight, casual about it. You say, oh, I'm Jew-ish. But Jew-ish, to people that know that joke, still means Jewish. It doesn't mean Catholic. And he's got Republican officials up his butt. None of them are in the House because they don't give a fuck. Again, back to
he had
they don't care.
Let me look it up. I believe it's the New York 5th.
The district attorney, who is a Republican, is like, nah, fuck this shit. We're going to investigate it and figure out if there was a crime here. Like, when you've lied so much that a Republican elected official will come around and say, that's bad. And then the fact that the House is just letting it ride, like no colleagues will comment. McCarthy certainly the fuck won't do anything because he's pledged to vote for McCarthy for Speaker. So McCarthy's completely just gone mute. He's not addressing it at all. And you can bet that McCarthy, because he's such a fucking power-playing piece of shit, he will ride this guy's support till he gets the speakership, and then he'll flip to make himself look like he cares.
It's all insane, but I mean it's yeah. The fuck did I do with that? Anyway, no, I mean it's I'm pretty sure it's the Republican representative from the New York 5th actually did pipe up, and he's like, I'm not okay with this. I think that. It's part and parcel, and I think part of it is if you look at New York, Long Island politics, it makes perfect sense, really, because a lot of these people are nuts. It's a Republican bastion next to the most solid Democratic bastion on the planet.
Yeah. Besides
maybe, I don't know, downtown Seattle and San Francisco.
Well, I mean, he covered all the bases. What's funny is A, this would be a scandal for any politician of either party. B, like we've covered so many times here, our party would likely own it because, we ran a perfectly reasonable person, aka, why is my mind blank? Because of beer. Al Franken. We ran Al Franken out on hardly anything in our gross effort to overly own everything. And so, we'd own it, but also he's got multiple things. Like, he lied about his educational background. Okay, that would be a scandal by itself. He lied about being Jewish. That would be a scandal by itself. And for me, it just checks the boxes because
none of his almost none of the places that he's worked for actually employed him.
Right, yeah. He said he worked for companies where he was only, at best, a part-time consultant or attached to a consultancy and not even working with them. And now this 9/11 thing with his mom, like, it's just...
I'm going to be honest. From stuff that I've heard,
unacceptable to Republicans.
I even kind of doubt the gay thing. I'm not going to lie. I even kind of doubt
the gay thing. Is he supposed to be gay?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's the Republican Party. That could be the only true thing. No way. He admitted it in advance, so it can't be true.
No, it can't be true. No, because apparently when he was in Brazil, he was married to a woman, which doesn't necessarily preclude him being gay. But it's just sort of like, wait a second, you were married. And then you fled Brazil ahead of a check fraud indictment. And then suddenly weren't married. And then you decided to start running for politics. And...
Well, there's a lot of question about where his campaign funds came.
Oh, and you know what? This is going to lead us into our next topic.
That might be the thing.
This is going to lead us into our next topic. Because one of the big things that got... Santos on the radar was Russia was right to invade Ukraine. And that's one of the things that got him in, his name in all the papers. And it turns out that first of all, he's flat broke, right? Yet somehow he loans himself $640,000. From where? Well, here's the thing. There's this friend of one of Putin's major backers, who happens to be in New York, and happens to be a, how should we put it, a custodian of said person's money in the U.S., and that organization is now under intense SEC investigation for laundering money for Russian oligarchs.
All I can say...
Santos's first out of the gate thing was, well, we shouldn't be, this isn't our fight. This isn't our problem in Ukraine. And where's that money coming from? It's all I was just saying is, does it smell like vodka?
If he suddenly is disappeared, I think we know that his Russian handler had to take care of it.
Oh no. He won't be disappeared. He'll be like every other Russian opponent of Putin. Mysteriously falls out of window, which again happened twice again this week. Just this week, everyone it's almost like a euphemism now when they have to put in the paper. They're like, so a major coal industrialist suddenly fell out of his window this week. A major hotel owner who is opposed Putin suddenly fell out his window this week. It literally, every time you turn around, another Putin opponent has magically fallen out of a window. It's like 12 Russian, of Putin's opponents have mysteriously fallen out of windows.
The soundtrack to the Putin regime: shitty Russian hymns and Wilhelm screams. So speaking of which, you brought us some video goodies, and I'm actually really amused by a lot of this. So, David, I'm gonna let you cue up the intro here, and then I'll play them with a break so that you can kind of lead people in. I was a little confused when he first showed it to me, so I want to make sure that we explain the first one before we play it. But these are two separate video advertisements that played over the holiday lead-up.
Yeah. So Russia Today, which is the English language mouthpiece for the Kremlin regime, decided to send out this video, and essentially it's a warning to Europe, right, of what will happen if you continue to support Ukraine. So go ahead and click that in.
You said something earlier like, oh, that's a nice Christmas you got there, and that's kind of the vibe. So when you watch this, understand that this is a propaganda message from Russia to Europe saying, here are your Christmases if you continue to diss Russia.
Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round yon virgin mother and child, holy infant so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly peace.
So I will say this, as a practitioner of the advertising craft, it's really well done, and the story is well told with the whole bow thing. I mean, it's funny, but not funny, because what kind of monstrosities, what kind of pieces of absolute corn-fed shit would do this kind of thing as any kind of thing, and then, trying to play the victim, like, oh, since you're blocked with the VPN, you can access it. Like, no, motherfuckers, you're the people that we have to use VPNs to get around. Don't try to flip that script.
Yeah.
So that was...
And on top of it, again, what they're threatening is, oh, well, if you continue to fight us, we'll just continue to freeze you out because... you should just pay us and let us invade, rape, and murder our neighbors. And eventually you, of course. But you should continue to give us money or we'll hurt you. I should also point out that Germany is actually doing very well. They are now on track. Like, thanks to Russia pulling this bullshit, Germany and the rest of Europe was anticipating going carbon neutral sometime around 2045. That's now moved up to 2030, right? Because they're like, you know what? We can't do this shit, guys. No, we're not going to. We're not going to give you any more money. But what was really amazing was the response. I won't say it's a direct response video, but it was. A lot of people have put this video up next to this one as sort of a "fuck you, Russia."
Yeah, this is the NATO Christmas greeting, which you just can't help but notice several shade tosses. And like David said, it may not have been a direct, but it's definitely part of the same topic, which is why we decided game recognized game was the appropriate way to title this.
Ding dong, ding dong.
Hark how the bells, sweet silver bells, all seem to say, throw cares away. Christmas is here, bringing good cheer to young and old, meek and the bold. Ding dong, that is their song, with joyful ring, all caroling. One seems to hear words of good cheer from everywhere, filling the air. All round their town, raising their sound, o'er hill and dale, telling their tale. Gaily they ring while people sing songs of good cheer. Christmas is here. Merry, 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 merry Christmas. Merry, 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 merry Christmas. All on this end, long without end, gay joyful tone to every home. Ding dong, that is their song, with joyful ring, all caroling. Ding
So,
David,
for
I have a question.
yeah.
Because this is the first time I actually stared at the whole thing and watched it all the way through. When we were leading up to the show, I was like listening to it and doing 500 things. Where do I sign up to do work for them? Because it's a whole bunch of dudes that looks like I could sit around and drink some beers with, and generally their entire female regiment appears to be quite attractive.
Well, so for those of you who didn't catch, there's two levels of shade there. First of all, they made a point of saying where they were singing it, which was Latvia, on the Russian border. And the second part of shade, for those of you who don't know the name of that song that they were singing, it's the Ukrainian Carol of the Bells.
There's nothing accidental about any of the composition of that.
I mean, it was definitely like the level of "bring it, bitch" was incredible. I also have to tell, for those of you who haven't heard this joke, I was trying to tell Lucas this joke earlier. It's such a great joke, and it's making the rounds in the Ukraine all over the place. Which is a guy who's been living as a hermit for a year shows back up, and he says, "What's going on?" He says, "Well, Russia and NATO are at war." "Oh my God, that sounds horrible. What's happened?" "Well, the Russians invaded and they've lost, more than 100,000 troops and thousands of tanks and, most, like, a significant portion of their air force, and they got beat back and now they're in the retreat." And I'm like, "Oh, that sounds horrible. How many people did NATO lose?" "Well, none. They haven't gotten here yet."
I think you either told me that or you've told that joke on the show. I don't remember.
No.
No, that's fine. That's all right. Well, for those that don't know what's coming next.
And I also want to say one other thing. It's important, and I said I was going to do this as an aside because we weren't going to do it as a full hot take.
Oh, right.
But
sorry, I didn't mean
so for those of you who aren't aware right now, the Russians are also continuing to cause trouble. They've convinced the Serbs to basically threaten an invasion of Kosovo, which, for those of you who don't remember, we went to war in the 90s to go stop the genocide of Albanians by the Serbs in Kosovo. And now, starting over a license plate issue, the Serbs want to go challenge the NATO border force in Kosovo. I'm just like, guys, we've done this dance twice before, and neither time have you come out on top. But there's a lot of pointing towards the Russians trying to, as their only way to seemingly divert NATO attention from Ukraine is to try and start this fight in the Balkans to try and distract NATO. And of course, NATO is like, "I'm not really worried about the Serbs. We've been there, done that. I'm very happy to continue just sending my surplus weapons, not my actual weapons, my surplus shit, to go blow your paper army up in the Ukraine." I have plenty of aircraft to remind the Serbs exactly why they don't go pick on their neighbors anymore.
It's, I'm glad to see the full spectrum of all the aspects of all of this. Like, it's terrible and it's shitty, but it's nice to be able to laugh about a few aspects of it, even though none of it's really funny. But there is the full-blown cultural phenomenon happening around it. So it is interesting to watch. And it's always interesting to watch with somebody like David that can take you into all the context and who lives on FARC and Reddit and sees everything and pulls things out of the depths of the internet to share with the rest of us. So thank you, sir. So for those that don't understand the flow, the Hot Take Happy Hour is over, which means it's time to review some beer. And we have a little bit of extra talking to do with this particular beer discussion because we have a special top 10 list to share with you as well. So we're going to jump in and we're going to start off with our first beer of the evening, and that is a little segment we call What You Drinking. And I'm going to let you go first with what you just poured.
Yeah, so I have a bunch of leftover Christmas beer. I drank Some really good stuff. By the way, if you find this on a shelf, buy it, drink it, enjoy it. I'm saving this bottle.
Buy, bake, and bake. You'll have to read it. It's a lot of words that curve. So read.
Yeah.
it.
So Irish Bye-Bye, Wake and Bake, Coffee, Oatmeal, Imperial Stout. This is from Terrapin.
Okay.
This is part of their Reserve series, their Jittery Joe's Reserve series. This shit is manna from heaven. It's good. It's real good. I was actually also surprised. For once, I found someone with a good use for lactose in beer other than milkshake beers, which is with this coffee stout, it evened it out. It really did. The lactose evened out the beer in a big way. It's really awesome.
Before you start with your beer review, Rob is here. Hi, Rob. Good to see you. 90250. Rob and I were just talking earlier about my pending trip to his neighborhood in April, which I mentioned earlier, but I'm sure I'll talk about it more. And there's going to be this whole trying California beer thing that happens in the spring. So, what do you have to taste to talk about?
So for tonight, though, in continuation of my emptying out my Christmas beer stuff, which I actually have one more Christmas beer that I'm probably going to do next week. But this is Gingerbread Fog, double dry hopped India Pale Ale with spices, and it is considered a double milkshake IPA. From I get a big kick out of their logo, Abomination Brewing. That's just it's.
The Gingerbread Fog is a 9.1%, clocks in with a really solid 2,400 ratings at 3.96 on Untappd. What you got from it?
Okay, so here's what's happened here.
I'm not sure what to expect at this point.
We have tried to do too many things at once here.
Oh, okay.
We've tried to make a big hoppy IPA, and we didn't quite get there. We've tried to make an ale with spices, and we kind of got there.
Okay.
We've tried to make a milkshake IPA, and we kind of got there. This feels like it should have been 3 different beers, and they tried to make it one.
Okay.
It's not bad. I would give this a solid 2.5. It's just trying to do too many things at once. It's trying to be a big, thick IPA, which is a challenge in and of itself. But then you're adding on the spices on top of it, and we're too busy, man. This is like this. There's a lot going on here. It's super thick. I mean, like from the milkshake, huh?
You're in a minority. I'm seeing so much praise for it on the Untappd feed. Best stocking stuffer ever. Does it taste gingerbready? Because that's what I see a lot of conversation about.
I would not call this gingerbready. I would call this spiced. It tastes more like mulling spices. And here's the deal: as someone who cooks, right, I deal with a lot of different spices. I can make gingerbread from scratch. I can make this stuff from scratch. I've made mulling spices from scratch. I've made all this stuff from scratch because I enjoy doing it that way, and I enjoy tailoring it to my taste. Mm-hmm. So I know what like the basic idea is, and then I understand like how to be like, okay, now I want a little bit more ginger in mine. I typically like a more ginger heavy mulling spice. Mm-hmm. The thing is, it's just so busy. Like if you just made a milkshake IPA, I feel like, okay, you've got an IPA and you've milkshaked it. Good deal. Mm-hmm. If you wanted to make an IPA and then toss in mulling spices, Okay, cool. I feel like they've tried to do 3 different things at once: make an IPA, make a milkshake beer, and make a spiced beer. And
Okay.
there's 3 things that they're trying to do at once, and it's one of those things. Is it a bad beer? No. The reason I got to downgrade it is because it doesn't excel at any of them. Like if they had just stopped at one of those ideas and been like or 2 of them, been like, I want to do a milkshake IPA. I want to make an IPA with spices. I want to make a milkshake spiced beer. Any 2 of those, we would have. I mean, it's like the old adage, like you can have it fast, good, or cheap. You get to pick 2.
Yep.
And they tried to pick all 3, and it ended up. It's not bad. I mean, like if someone handed this to me, I would definitely wouldn't turn it down. If I saw this at the bar and I was looking for something different to drink at the bar, I'd definitely I would definitely consider this. I just think that the reason I got to downgrade it is it would have been great if they'd only picked 2.
Okay. All right. That's fair. But you can drink it and enjoy it, so it's not a total loss.
Yeah, no, I mean, here's the deal. Like, for those of you who don't know our rating system, generally speaking, there are very few beers that we will not, like, look at the brew, like, because this took effort. This took significant effort to do.
Right.
And the fact that this is palatable and drinkable is a huge credit to the brewer.
Yeah, because you would know if we didn't think it was drinkable.
Yeah, no, we will straight up be like, fuck that shit.
The benchmark that has never been reset is the Lucky Charms milkshake that was released for St. Paddy's Day a few years ago by Tailgate. So
yeah.
It wasn't our bag, and you saw that happen on our faces live on the internet.
We were just like, oh my god, this is the worst thing ever.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go find that just so we can have that clip around as a benchmark clip. As I'm making multiple technical improvements as we head into 2023. And one of those I saw earlier with the happy hour graphics. But that might be one of those improvements. We just have to keep that clip on hand for the, oh my God. Like, it's something else. Is it my turn? I've been drinking on mine for the first 58 minutes of the show. So today I picked this up at Gray Line. So I was telling David before the show, I've had 2 consecutive meetings planned with one of my collaborators here on one of my projects get canceled. And we were going to meet at Gray Line and have some food and drink. And Gray Line is right up the street. It's not the closest. I'm closest to New Holland, but Gray Line would be the next closest brewery to me, probably. What I like about Gray Line is that they're a true original small brewery, and they're also like right on one of the main drags. Their name is based on the idea that we all have different ideas and world views, but we can come together over beer, and it's a Gray Line. That's the thing I was given as an explanation, which I kind of like.
It also sounds like bullshit.
I mean, it depends. But I don't think I've tried this. I've reviewed their beers on the show before, and I've tried a lot of their beers on flights. I don't think I've tried this one, or I definitely haven't talked about it on the show. But this is the Steamroller Coffee Stout. I do like, even though they don't consistently use artwork, I do like the artwork on
I like that.
because it's got that old school steamroller vibe. I'm going to see if I can make it focus, and then there we go. So I dig what they're doing there. I do generally dig their labeling system. I think it's got a nice method to it. Also, I like that the steamroller is heading toward a little section of grounds coffee, or not grounds, coffee beans. What I would say about this is that it is a coffee stout, and if you're looking for a reliable coffee stout, this is a good way to go. It's a 9.3. It gets pretty high ratings. It's 3.9 on Untappd, but it doesn't have as many ratings as the one that you just tried. Untappd's world says that you're the outlier and you're basically wrong about the beer, but I will go with you. My take on
when we put up the top 10 rankings later,
Yeah.
we can talk about who's wrong.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, because there's going to be some. That's the first thing we'll dive into because it'll be a discussion of its own. But so I'm going to say that if you want a coffee stout, that you're gonna taste that coffee stout and you're going to say that is a very good, what I expect and need from a coffee stout. That's what's going on here. It doesn't have anything unique or different or special, but it doesn't suck, and it's also not trying too hard. It's straight down the middle, and I actually really like the way that they composed this. Because, sometimes coffee stout, you're just like, got it. It's like,
What?
It tastes...
Who does that? Who?
I've had some coffee stouts where I was like, that's the coffee that sat in the pot all day.
That makes good stout. I mean, to me, I'm like, yeah, give me that bitter. Give me that bitter in that stout. Yeah.
But this has a bitter. It's just a good bitter. And I don't know if there's a narrative on it. It's funny. They don't really have a lot of narrative in theirs. And actually, your gingerbread fog didn't have any narrative at all. We're going to have to get on some. We're going to have to have a conversation with Greyline and Abomination about making sure they put their fucking descriptions.
And I gotta say, just a clarification as I continue to drink this, it's growing on me a little. I'm starting to realize that if I drink more faster, I actually start to get that gingerbread feel, and it gets better if I kind of half chug it.
See, yeah, that might be what it is. So anyway, as we alluded to, we're going to do a little something special, which is part of this whole 2022 coming to a close and New Year coming at us kind of thing. Everybody has all these top lists and shit. Well, as an active user of Untappd, I get the little email alerts for different stuff, and they did their top 10 craft beers with the most 5-star check-ins. That is the standard that we're going to discuss. So David and I are going to go through this list together, and we're going to either pontificate or qualify or disqualify or otherwise barf our opinions onto the internet live in front of you about this list. So let's pull this thing up. This is the list. I'm going to have to... I thought I could get away with keeping our beer graphic, but it's going to get the damn way. So there we go. So this is, keep in mind the criteria here. This is 5-star check-ins for craft beers reviewed on Untappd. This is Untappd, brought to you by Oscar Blues. Let's go down the list. Number 10, Duvel. Is that it? Duvel?
Yeah. I mean, but the thing is,
I've never had it.
All right, so Duvel is a really simple, easy Belgian beer. It's a lot like Guldendraak. It's a lot like a lot of them. I mean, it's a Belgian beer. They're well made. Time and effort is put into them. I don't see any reason to put that above any other Belgian for the most part, including I'm going to jump ahead a little bit to number 7.
Wait, hold on. I want to make sure we look this fucker up because I want to see its... Jesus, why is it so hard to Google? There we go. This is a Belgian Strong Golden.
Yeah, it's a Belgian ale. It's a Belgian Strong. This is here's the thing. Belgians are good beers. I have one for my after show, that I'm actually going to talk about for my second beer. I'm not actually drinking this for my second beer, but I am going to talk about it. Belgian yeast produces a very good product every single time, as long as you do the basics to not fuck it up. There's a lot harder yeasts to use. The reason more people don't fuck around with Belgian yeast is simply because Belgian yeast doesn't play well with others, and it is a bastard to fucking control.
Well, I'm looking
when I say that, I mean
I'm looking at this thing and I'm not recognizing the bottle. I'm pretty sure I've never had this particular one, but I have had some other variety of Duvel because I did in 2020 I participated in Nashville's virtual Oktoberfest by Rhizome Productions. It was great. It was very cool, and they sent you go pick up the kit of the food and the beer, and I know there was one in there, but I don't think it was this one. I don't remember this label.
They change it up a little bit, but I mean, again, it's a Belgian, and for if you think you don't like beer, go try a Belgian. They always have really bright really bright flavor notes. It's got a ton of carbonation. They're always fun. It's really hard to fuck up.
Ooh, barrel aged stuff apparently. All right. Well, let's jump into number 9, Bell's Brewery Hop Slam Ale. That is, I think that one's pretty common. In fact, I'm going to make sure that I know what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
But I'm 99% sure. Yes, this is the one you can grab at Aldi. Like if you want to drink this beer, you could trip over it almost everywhere. And of course, Bell's is here in Michigan, so it's a local for me.
I mean, it's a solid, well hopped beer. I can't knock it.
And it's a 10%er, so it's showing up for the party.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Bell. Here's the thing: Bell's does a good job. Is there anything that makes that I would say that makes Hop Slam stand particularly out against anyone else? I will say this.
No,
I will say this. I will say this about Bell's, and
it's a textbook example of a hoppy as fuck IPA. There's a reason you can get it at Aldi.
And I will say this, like we normally skew towards the obscure. Like me and Lucas definitely skew towards the obscure when we reach for beers. We want to have new experiences, new flavor ideas thrown at us. There is, and I myself am a regular proponent of this. Do the basics well. And the thing that Bell's does really well is Bell's does the basics really fucking well, and I can't knock them for that. Yeah. So, and this is one of those examples of doing the basics well and producing something that is relatively basic but doing it very, very well.
Yeah. Coming in at number 8, Focal Banger from The Alchemist. Now, I had not been accurately exposed to The Alchemist until early this year when I took a trip to Vermont for a family thing, and I was able to grab some Alchemist real fresh right there in actually their hometown of Stowe, Vermont. That's where we were staying. I did not get to visit the tap room or the brewery. I believe there were some hours that were still limited coming out of COVID for that. So that wasn't really on the table, but I was able to pick up some, and we'll talk about that as we move through this list. But Focal Banger is an American IPA, 7%, drops in at an average of 4.41 on the ratings, but has been rated 4,044 times as a 5-star. And based on my experience with some of their other stuff, I would have to say that's probably pretty accurate placement.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I've never been able to try the Alchemist. I may go ping my guys at Reds and be like, "Hey, bring me some Alchemist," and we'll see what we can do. I mean, it's an IPA.
On my list to stock up on next time I head up to New Hampshire. I'm going to grab a bunch to bring home, so that whenever you visit me here, there will be some. So next up is number 7, and this is all you. I'm going to make you say everything in that line while I look this fucker up.
All right, so here's the irony. When you're doing this in both Dutch and German, you have to pronounce the W's as V's and the V's as W's. So that's Westwelterlin. Westwelterlin. 12.
Yeah, read the rest of it, fucker. I'm going to make you do this.
Trappist. Westwelterin 12.
Brewery.
Oh, that shit. Oh, Breweries de Sint 6000 Brouch van Westwelin.
Yep. For everybody at home, that's a Belgian quadruple. 10%, 4.5 average.
Again, it's a Belgian beer. As long as you don't literally piss in the goddamn wort, it should be. And you know what? Even if you do piss in the wort, you could probably go piss in the wort, and it would still be fine. The Belgian needs to be like, Honey Badger don't care.
we needed to make this night complete was a honey badger reference. All right, that's fair. How about number 6? Treehouse Brewing's King Julius. I don't know if I've heard of this one either. Have you had this?
I mean, I'm intrigued. I've heard of King Julius. I don't know if I ever associated it with the brewing company. It's not something I've ever tried.
The Imperial Double IPAs are dominating the fuck out of this list. I should be able to pick this one up next time I'm in New Hampshire. This is Treehouse Brewing is from, I hope it's Charlton and not Carlton, but Charlton, Massachusetts. This is an 8% Imperial Double IPA. Flavorful, juicy, hop saturated, 4.6 average rating, and then of course, as you can see, clocked in on over 4,500 5-star ratings this year with Untappd. It sounds delicious. I'm very interested now because if you name it Julius, you've got to be making a very citrusy reference, the orange Julius kind of reference. So I'm real into that. So I'm going to be real into trying this beer.
Well, and especially because normally you get a big lemon and pine out of IPAs. I won't lie, sliding in an orange flavor into a beer, especially an IPA, is hard. It's actually very hard because the hops don't want to let you, especially in an IPA, don't want to let you have that citrus sweet. Citrus bitter is easy to do in an IPA. Citrus sweet is hard to do in an IPA.
Well, they've got my interest way peaked because the description is flavors of orange creamsicle, mango smoothie, and a bounty of fresh tropical fruit. If this fucking thing delivers like that, I am in. Very in. Let's jump into their top 5. So, number 5, 3 Floyds, Zombie Dust, which currently owns like a whole section of my beer fridge.
Right. I mean, here's the deal. Zombie Dust, and here's the deal. I no offense, like this top 5, with the exception of like one of these, is all basic bitch to me. It
is a 6.5. It runs at a 4.25 average, so it's appreciated, but not like a star of the show. But I've got an affinity for it. I like it.
I think this is the least of their beers, honestly.
I like it better than some IPAs, but I don't think it's the best IPA you could snag.
I honestly, I think this is the least of their beers. I think this is the most basic bitch of their beers. And the reason why is, from my perspective, Zombie Dust is over-hopped. Here's the deal. If you want to take a whole mouthful of Angostura bitters and then stuff your mouth with romaine, go for it.
To be fair, it's called Zombie Dust, and the first thing that I think of is, God damn, it is kind of like just a mouthful of hop dust. I mean,
yeah.
So I mean, it's accurate. There's truth in advertising there.
Here's the deal. I want to clarify. Even though I just said that, I don't think it's a bad beer.
Right.
It's just so hopped that, like, for me, as someone who's had a lot of IPAs, who's done a lot of stuff, I'm like, this. I understand that this is one of the most popular beers. I just wish that we had some more creativity in this bitch, motherfuckers. Because then we move on to number 4, which is Bell's Two Hearted, which is honestly like as my level of basic bitch beer goes. That's like one of my go-tos. I'm just like, oh, okay. I don't know what the rest of this shit is, but you have Bell's Two Hearted. That's straight up. That's a solid IPA. And honestly, I think I'm glad it's ahead of Zombie Dust. I think it's a better IPA than Zombie Dust because it actually has flavors other than just simply crushing my mouth with hops.
Right. It's 100% Centennial, and it's named after the Two-Hearted River in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. So. Got some,
which, by the way, the type of hops that you use is really important. As I've had the opportunity to talk to my beer reps about some of the stuff that they present me, I'm like, the type of hops that are used lets me know what the brewer is after.
Oh yeah.
And a Centennial hop is a very even like, in order to get that level of flavor from that Two Hearted Ale, they had to use a lot of Centennial hop to get there. but they measured it well. They thought about it well. They brewed it well. It's a very solid, kind of go-to beer. Is it something
No.
that I would necessarily think about as like something that's amazing? No. But is it a solid beer? Fuck yeah.
Yeah, and that's another one you can get almost everywhere, including Aldi. I would explain to the audience, if you're seeing this for the first time, either live or later on, normally we don't go this deep on the beer content, but this is the time of year to do this. So if you're waiting on our top 5, don't be confused. We're just doing the top 10 on the beers, top 5 on the topics. So if you see the graphic in the corner, that's not what we're talking about right now. But let me say this: Two Hearted, I think is so common that it gets found everywhere and then appreciated well because it's a high quality beer.
I can see that. Same with Zombie Dust. I think Three Floyds has done a great job of figuring out how to come out of Muncie, or not Muncie, wherever the fuck they are in Ohio. Is it Muncie, Indiana, or is it Ohio?
Munster, Indiana.
Munster,
M-U-N.
Munster, Indiana, not Muncie. They've done a great job at coming out of there and with a fight, which I appreciate.
Boy.
Like they decided to not lie down and accept a lot of stuff. They decided to come out of there and fight and claim market share.
Oh yeah.
Which I appreciate.
If you've ever been through northern Indiana along the how to delicately explain this, the tip of the dick of Lake Michigan, that shit is some flat industrial fucking space, and they're sitting right there in the middle of that, and it's just really cool to see somebody cranking like they do. And then Bell's, of course, is over here on the Michigan side of the line. Now, David, if you're not drinking up, drink up, because when we clear number 1 here, we got another beer break coming up. Speaking of hops, I'm very, very looking forward to this because it's what I had at lunch. I'm going to hold it and open it on the next break. So I'm sure you're going to have a mouthful to say about number 3, but give me a little room. First of all, I would like to express my disappointment in America that Yuengling makes the top 5 of any list, or even the top 10. As David finds every new and inventive way he can to express his rage. Here's the salt in the wound, ladies and gentlemen, is the 3,000 or maybe 2,500, but it's a big fucking spread between 4 and 3 on this list, and that makes me sad. And I understand that America, in general, loves their lagers. At any given sports bar, the lager tends to be king. And if you don't want to drink shitty beer, Budweiser, fuck and Nazi. So, Yuengling is an excellent go-to if you're trying to not debase yourself with Budweiser. And that's what I used to think. I used to say, you know what?
At least the Belgian Nazis are over there in Belgium. I have to like that. Fuck it.
Not to say that any of these Belgians are made by Nazis, but look, if you haven't gotten on the train of knowledge, if you haven't become woke enough to understand what the fuck is going on with Yuengling, I used to tell people Yuengling is the cheapest, shittiest beer that I will drink. And actually, in the grand scheme of mass-produced lagers, it's a good lager. It's fine. But it's made by goddamn wide-open Trumpers, so fuck that. And
Also,
I dropped Yuengling from my entire life when I found out that not only were they Trump donors and supporters, but they were vocally proud, wide-open Trump donors and supporters. It is Trump beer, and I have no quarter for it. But, David, share your thoughts. After you center yourself. And it's an amber
This is an adequate lager. It has respectable hop and malt notes. And it is made by fucking abominations.
Now it's 4.5%, so it's coming in, on the light side of the chemistry. It's only a 3.4 average rating, so it has suffered from the owner's bad choices. But it's like I guess I could see it. Like if it were like number 8, I'd be like, oh, whatever, fine. You're only going to change so many bros in so many sports bars. But the fact that it runs up here in the top 3 just really disappoints me.
Just move on. Move on. Just move on.
And let's do before we move on. Let's point out that if you were in an average American bar, sports bar, restaurant, etc., most of them serve Yingling and Budweiser. And if you're normally drinking a Budweiser and someone pours you a Yingling and you're an Untappd user, you're going to be like, "Holy fuck! I'm going to give this 5 stars because Budweiser's piss." Carbonated piss, and that's not.
Yeah.
But you didn't do your goddamn research, and you need to Google some shit. Number 2, a completely respectable number 2, Heady Topper from The Alchemist, deserves every single fucking 5-star rating it has in this top 10 list. Heady Topper, I got to finally try when I was in Vermont. God damn, is that a good IPA? This thing is an 8%. It's the flagship IPA from The Alchemist. If you love hops, you're going to love Heady Topper. And let me tell you, Vermont does a lot of shit with food that's great. And one of those things that they do with food is great is cheese. And there are Heady Topper fucking cheeses and stuff. And you can do some cheese pairings with some Heady Topper. And oh boy, you can just basically enter beer cheese heaven in that tiny little footprint of Stowe, Vermont. Between fucking Cabot and The Alchemist, you can be in complete fat kid heaven, in my opinion. What are your thoughts on that one? If you haven't ever had that one,
No, Alchemist is not something we get a lot.
I'm hoping that you get to partake. And then breaking the 10,000 check-in 5-star barrier, number 1, Pliny the Elder.
Pliny.
Pliny?
Pliny.
I thought it was Pliny.
Pliny the Elder. He's a very famous Latin historian and scholar.
There you go. That would be the difference between a mass media college dropout and a legal degree holding fucker like that. Never had to give a shit and still don't give a shit, but good for you, Pliny the Elder.
Also,
Amarillo, Centennial, CTZ, Warrior, Simcoe. This one basically went down the hop aisle and went. This fucker is 8%, 4.5 average rating, and as you can see, over 10,000 5-star ratings. Russian River Brewing Company, and don't be sad, they're in California, so it's okay.
No, that actually doesn't surprise me. That sounds like a really amazing IPA. You know, when you sit there and you balance your hops between the flavors between hops, like it's there's a lot of easy mode when you're brewing an IPA. Of all right, we'll just use one and let the flavor of that one come through. The new thing is to fuck around with Idaho 7. Which is, a wrecking ball of a hop. Mm-hmm. But to just throw Idaho 7 in and let it ride, or even 7-row, right? Mm-hmm. It takes effort to balance the different styles of hops. I mean, you have a really generic like Cascadia. And then you have a harder to manipulate one like Amarillo, which does not like to play well with others. Simcoe likes to play really well with others. Yeah. It's asking for some other hop to show up and do a little dance with it. So that doesn't surprise me.
You know what's most amazing to me about this list is that 7 out of 10 are IPAs.
And here's the deal. And you, again, like I said at the beginning of this, you and I reach for more obscure beers because we want to try what else is out there. We want to explore. We want to experiment.
Yeah, but like, goddamn. I mean, I thought we were past the big IPA craze.
I think we are. I think we are, but mostly because I think the bros are over it to a certain extent. I think this is a large bro list. I think this is leftover from pandemic land of a lot of bros being like, "Oh, I got tired of Bud, and I'm gonna go try something new." I think this is some leftover from that. I think there's also, here's the thing: IPAs are easy for all. How to put it? I was talking to a guy who does graphic design, and he said one of the things that I get like a good deal of is like in terms of like presentations of like portfolio, I get random fractal shit and 3D porn.
What?
Right? As demonstrations of like their ability to like manipulate 3D objects for like graphics, right? I feel like this is like the same thing of,
all right.
This is, I can make bad YouTube porn, or I can make decent beer and it's gonna have a lot of hops. I think things like red ales, things like brown ales, things like proper sours, things like even so. I have this. No, actually, I didn't bring it up. Urban Chestnut, what they've been doing with Pilsners is absolutely off the chain, right? I hate Pilsners. I will drink Urban Chestnut Pilsners like fucking water. Like that is definitely like I have a whole prohibition about it's 9:00. We shouldn't be drinking. I would wake up and drink an Urban Chestnut Pilsner, man. I'd be like, nope, this is fine. It's absolutely fine. I like there are organizations out there that are doing good work with good stuff, and I think that there's a difference between popular and good.
No, that's
right? Kim Kardashian is fucking popular, right?
Yeah.
And as Bill Nye the Science Guy has pointed out, we have enough plastic in the sea already. I mean, it's the same reason why I look at that list, and when I see Yingling at like number 4 or 5, whatever it was,
3,
and I look at that, I'm like, we're dealing with a lot of people who are doing basic bitch beer. It's the same thing with the bit. Like
Toy Story is the good reference here. Uncultured swine.
Yeah, Philistines. Again, like the fact that Duvel, which has been around for fucking ever,
yeah,
and does the exact same thing pretty much every single time. Why? Because they're just like, again, it's Belgian yeast. All I have to do is present it in the presence of fuck it. Throw green beans or some shit in there. And the Belgian yeast will probably be just like, assimilate. make Belgian beer. It doesn't care.
All right. There's enough talk about IPA that I'm desperate. I just cracked it and I'm staring at it and I got to drink it. But before I can drink it, we got to introduce this. So it's time for another round. We're going to review a couple more beers and we're going to jump into this top 5. I get to go first this time because I've been sitting here.
Yes, you do.
So on my gray line kick that I am doing tonight, the Mosaic Gold. This was something that I don't recall being on the menu the last time I was at Gray Line. I could be completely wrong. It could have been there the whole damn time, and maybe I just didn't try it. Maybe I just didn't think it through. But this is more of their standard appearance to the label. Like earlier, I had the steamroller, right? This is typically what you see from Gray Line's labeling. I like the simplicity and the graphic quality of it. So Mosaic Gold is an extra dry double IPA. And the thing that attracted me to it was the idea of the extra dry. It's a 10%er, so it's coming to the party. Average rating right around 4. Doesn't have a whole hell of a lot of ratings, which leads me to believe it might actually be pretty new. But they don't really necessarily clock a lot of ratings. But the thing that got me about this was it was just so deeply, vividly IPA. And I'm going to see if I can come up with some better descriptions as I drink it. It comes in like at the nose, it has you, right? Like, you know, approaching the vessel, what you're about to drink. It's just so purely, I think it's all Mosaic. I'm trying to find some information on that, but I don't see anything. This is why descriptions from breweries and Untappd really help. But it's just, there's such a richness to it. It's not bitey in a shitty way. It's like exactly the right level. And I think I might, like, if somebody were to actually ask me, I could maybe tell them Mosaic is my favorite as far as hop varieties go, because this thing just delivers the shit out of it. And the extra dry, I'm a sucker for extra dry cider, extra dry in champagnes and that sort of thing, and having that applied to this double IPA realm, it's pretty good shit, man. I'm pleased. And if I can make this thing last the rest of the show, it'll be a nice accompaniment. Anyway, I did it with lunch. It was delicious. They have an incredibly good food menu. And you'll respect this as a service industry management person. These people at Gray Line have an incredibly robust menu. Easily 4 or 5 different sections of offerings with at least 3 to 6 items in every section. Sandwiches, nachos, and I get that there's a lot of planning that can make this perfectly reasonable, but they do all this shit that they do with their food in a 10 by 10 cordoned off corner of the room that is their kitchen. It's open, not open, but it's like got a partition. It's not a room. All of the shit is crammed into a 10 by 10 space with one guy killing it, and they have some of the most original flavors and inventive twists on their nachos. I love their nachos. And they have these 2 salsas that they bring you to the table that are just incredibly flavorful. They just kill it. They do a lot of work with not a lot of space. And
it's all about prep. I mean, from a service industry perspective, it's all about prep. It's one of the things that I get angry about in my current line, like in where I currently am, which is that everything requires way too much prep for what I'm doing. But if you've got the way you can do that with one guy is epic amounts of prep. If you've got everything ready to go so that you can just reach into a 9-pan and grab the portion that you need, already seasoned, already prepped. If you can just reach into another 9-pan where you have like a bunch of like squeeze bottles of sauces ready to go, then then you can do that easily in that level of space. It just takes a shit ton of prep.
They do a good job on, I don't know what the right industry jargon is, and you'll probably be able to clear it up, but like having a lot of the same ingredients that are repeated in different items, they do that really well.
Which is, here's the thing, that like where I am right now, again, that's one of the things I get mad about, is that we don't reuse ingredients enough. When I was at ML Rose, one of the things that made life a lot easier is we reused ingredients in a lot of things.
I remember that as a big fan of the menu. Yeah. Well, I love Gray Line's work here on the food. I know we're supposed to talk about the beer, but damn, they've got a great starter menu. They've got tacos, nachos, sliders, and sandwiches. To me, it's one of the best and reasonably priced places in Grand Rapids where you can go have great beer. I mean, their Mosaka IPA, which I did review before, you remember me raving about that.
Yeah.
That thing is sought after by many people that know what's up as far as IPA is concerned. And I mean, we ran into a dude that was in town from Florida, and we were like, why are you taking 2 stacks of cases of that with you? Like, because it's the best fucking IPA in the country, and I don't want to not have it, so I'm taking it back for a 6-month supply. Oh, okay. So they do a really good job. I love the beer. I love the food. And I'm really into this Mosaic Gold. I guess Mosaic Gold has made me finally have to admit it's probably my favorite hop. So what do you got going on?
So I have this barrel-aged, totally roasted Vandermill cider. And the reason I reached for this is because I wanted to have we have a slight little like dig at Vandermill a little bit.
Unfortunately.
Which is treat your staff well. Because Vandermill just laid off their entire taproom staff. And Lucas was a little surprised by this. Here's the thing. Typically when restaurants or bars close, they want to do so at arm's length. And there's a good reason why. You have pros, and then you have what I like to call hobbyists. Pros understand what goes with the territory. Hobbyists... yeah.
Well,
So, what can happen sometimes when you decide that you're going to close and you tell people that they don't have a job anymore in this industry is they like to tear everything up. Like, wreck your shit. Steal as much as they can. They'll walk off with kegs. They'll walk off with $100 bottles of liquor. All sorts of things. I mean, like, because it's all by design, it's all easily movable, right? And
I sort of hear you, but that concept is based on the taker theory that everybody here is trying to take from me. I get that it can happen. I feel like it's probably overblown.
No. I've watched it happen.
I'm sure you have watched it happen. I watched people be dishonest in retail over the years. It still didn't give, my...
No, like when you tell a restaurant that they're going to close and the staff goes apeshit, I've literally watched that happen.
And here's the deal, David. I don't think the problem was the sudden notice. I think the problem was the pussy-ass way they went about it. So apparently the whole controversy that erupted on Twitter
a little bit
was based on the fact that they just kind of sent an email to people. And they basically said, it's untenable to have the tap room open, which, a guy in my seat, a guy in the marketing seat, a guy in the advertising and branding seat, is going to look at the business owner and say, that's because your dumbass didn't spend enough money to make money. And if you're promoting your product,
that's often true,
the way you fucking should, you shouldn't have this problem. But
no,
you're going to run into this problem when you're stuck at advertising and branding and refuse to invest. So
which I'm not going to lie. This is not the best logo I've ever seen for a brewery, but
I was kind of glad that you chose Totally Roasted as a Vandermill option, because when I first saw it walking through a store, I did a double take. Vanderbilt what?
Right.
It's Vanderbilt's color scheme, and it says Vander. I was like, what? Now that's because I'm a Tennessee kid, but
yeah,
so I can get behind the staff gripe, and then the fact that they even engaged via text, just fed the beast. Like, their management should be savvy enough not to respond to texts from employees and only to use the official channels. So then they ended up making the news, and then they have enough wherewithal to issue a bullshit corporate statement to the news media, but they didn't have enough wherewithal to get the owner into the location on the last day with the last shift and say, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really sorry. Let me tell you the bad news. And have the balls in person to explain shit to those that are there, and then send the email for the rest of the people that weren't on that.
I'm not going to lie. If you work in the hospitality industry, you should know what's coming, right? You should know if you're on the ball.
Yeah, but it's still, I just have no love for pussies that won't do it face to face.
That's fair.
Even the
that's semi-fair. But I mean, again, the issue is that
people that have ever let me go.
I want to point out, like, I've literally worked with people who killed other people literally hours before and showed up to work in the kitchen. So,
well, while David revels in the convict,
I'm just pointing out that this is a reality of working in the hospitality industry, dude. So
that shows up with the bad news and end up coming out shanked. Now let's talk about the product, because the product is still out there. Because the tap room is closed, it doesn't mean you can't still get the product. It doesn't mean they're not brewing the product. So I'm going to talk about the product now. As a cider goes, I'm actually really impressed with this. I'm not getting any of this bourbon barrel aged stuff out of it. Nothing. I did. When I had
Absolutely nothing. I mean, I'm a little stuffy right now because right now it's gone up to 60. So like, my sinuses.
For me, it was definitely palate for me. It's in there. At least as far as I noticed, it was in there. I liked it.
I mean, if it is, it's really subdued, which I don't mind. I like the fact that it's super dry.
Yes.
It's super dry, which I very much appreciate. A lot of ciders go super wet, but I do want to talk just for a moment because this is the end of the year, and we've done so many of these over the course of the year of barrel aged stuff.
Yeah.
So we've done a ton of barrel aged stuff.
The new trend.
I've got this barrel aged. I've got
barrel aged is the new it. Like
this barrel aged.
That is over.
And I want to come back to this that I pointed out at the beginning, like this Irish Bye-Bye, which wasn't barrel aged. And I also want to point out another example. So, I, as a fundamental point of existence, do not like when major brewers buy out craft brewers because they have a tendency to make them suck to make them meet profit goals, right? And Lagunitas is one of those examples of what should have been like an okay craft brewer that got bought up by Heineken, and now they make an IPA, which, quite frankly, I might use for bidet wash.
God damn.
Maybe not. I certainly won't get a yeast infection from it because it doesn't have any. But I had a rep try and talk them up the other day, and then I went to my brewer guys. I'm like, "What do you have from Lagunitas that doesn't suck?" And they're like, "Well, we've got this coffee stout aged in rye oak barrels, right?" And I went and drank this, and
are you about to tell me that you're over it with the barrel age movement?
Here's the thing: you can age stuff in barrels and add flavor. I think some of the things that we've been doing with barrel age is literally gotten to the point of Karen. It's gotten to silly. It's gotten to silly. This
barrel age fan, I will at least say that might be fair.
I mean, here's the problem. This would have been a perfectly good stout, all on its own, except for the fact that it ended with this random fucking whiskey slap that I didn't need. Of all the people, bidet wash made an okay stout, except they still fucked it up.
I'm going to warn you that when you finally come visit and we go to New Holland and we sit and we drink all the dragon's milk, because you are conscripted to all the dragon's milk, you do not get to act embarrassed when I stand up indignantly and point to the door if you criticize the barrel-aged movement and tell you to shut your whore mouth and get the fuck out.
No, again, here's the thing. I think the barrel-aged moment needs to take a beat. It needs to take a beat and stop being like, oh, someone brewed alcohol in this? We should put beer in it.
I mean, at this point, I'm ready for barrel-aged water, right? Like it is kind of getting a little extra. I will give you that.
it's getting out of control. And the thing is, like, I've got this pontoon, like, I've got as my, like, wash beer, this pontoon campfire coffee brown ale, right? This has never touched a fucking barrel of shit. And it's a perfectly good coffee brown. It's actually really solid. Again, even this gingerbread fog. No fucking barrel. No, like we've gotten obsessed with like shoving beer in barrels, and I have a theory as to why. I have a theory. So wine, when you do the whole wine thing, you get to tell a story, right? From grape to the mashing of the grape to the aging of the grape. And the story is like all the way from like, this is the soil that we planted it in. This is where, like, because it really does matter, like, what region you get your wine from. Like, a Washington red is going to taste vastly different from a French red or an Italian red, right? A California white is going to taste vastly different from a German Riesling or any of these other things. There's a whole story that you get to tell from, like, growing to finish.
Now you're getting my brain moving, because storytelling is a big piece of my work in brands.
Yeah,
I think I know where you're going with this, and I'm interested to see what you're saying.
And in wine, you get to tell a story, and I feel like brewers have felt left out of that story, right? Because beer doesn't take 10 years to age. Beer takes 4 months to age. It's not
that by involving the barrel, they get to tell a bigger story.
Bingo.
And a lot of these cases, they're not even telling a story that's their fucking story, because they're using somebody else's barrel.
Right. But they feel like they get to tell a more complex story, right?
I see what you're saying.
Whereas traditionally with beer, it's 4 months, and it's about the ingredients you use.
Yeah.
It's about you checking on it all the time. The thing is I think brewers, like, wine is in its own way is a very hands-off story, right? I let everything tell its own story.
Yeah.
Whereas beer is actually in its own way more labor intensive, because a brewer has to regularly sit on top of their goddamn beer.
Yeah.
And it's also considered far more plebeian, right? It's just, beer is the drink of the people. And it's not classy. And I feel like a lot of people are trying to tell a story where they feel like they can be more classy, that they can be something that they're not. And that frustrates me for this reason. Is there a lot of shitty beer out there? Yes. Is it still approachable? Yes. Am I a Bud drinker? No. I drink beer. Am I a little fucking elitist? Yeah. Yeah, I am. But the thing is, I prefer beer. And the reason I prefer beer is because this is, to me, a better story about something that I care about.
Right.
As opposed to a bunch of rich people with a bunch of land growing fucking grapes and storing them in vats, in oak vats for 10 years because they don't have to make fucking rent in 2 months, right? Beer is a much different story than that.
Yeah.
And I feel like the cat, like this movement to be like, oh, we're gonna barrel age, we're gonna age it for another like 4 months. Even some of the stuff now, like, because one of the things that you can do when you barrel age is you can let a bottle, once you let it barrel age, you can let a bottle sit for up to 5 years. Mm-hmm. So I found out from the people at Reds why they still had all that Monday night brewing stuff, right? It's because a lot of it has been barrel aged, right?
Yeah.
So they can let it sit for fucking forever.
Right. Well, I've kind of pushed that boundary a little bit. The other day, I cracked open one of my favorite Dragon's Milk reserves, and it's the cocoa nib and peanut butter. You had that, I think, before I left town. I let you loading the Dragon's Milk New Holland Hull because I knew it could get more when I got here in my neighborhood. And I found that there was some sediment in the bottom of that bottle. Now, I don't think that really affected it. It's still the same beer, but it was kind of, funky and weird. And it's not like you can just shake it up, right? So that was something I had to get used to. Like, some of those are going to have some sediment, but they do have a shelf life that's pretty respectable. You're right about that. David, let's switch back to politics. We opened the show with the hot takes. Now we're going to close the show with our top 5 of 2022. So if you're wondering what the fuck this is about, the deal is David and I each agreed to make a secret list of top 5 topics of the year. Now, these could be for any reason. I have a variety of reasons on mine. I'm sure David has his reasons for his. But we're going to go down from 5 to 1, and we're each going to jump in with our topic that is the topic at hand. And I have a feeling we're going to overlap. I'm going to be interested to see how we overlap. And this is how we're going to close out the show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. The top topics of 2022. And I'm going to open with number 5 to get you rolling. It's going to be one of your favorite things, one of your favorite topics, one of your favorite people, David. I think in 2022, my topic number 5 on the countdown is your best friend, Elon Musk. And my reasoning is across the board. Partly because I've noticed that on this show we tend to go to the Musk topic quite a bit. David has, as we frequently joke about and display, an enormous hate boner for Elon. And that's something that comes up a lot with us in our stories and our topics, but also this has been the year, man. This has been the year when that fucking bastard and all his nutty shit could not stay out of the news. He still can't stay out of the news. He's still fucking up Twitter and plummeting Tesla stocks. So to me, he had to be on the list, but as it's Elon, and I've learned to hate his guts from you and his own actions, I decided that he couldn't be higher than number 5. So that's why on my top 5 goes to Elon Musk.
And I'll be honest, we'll be revisiting this slightly in a second. But my number 5 was inflation. And here's why. At the beginning of the year, I was like, nah, we don't need to worry about this shit. I'm not seeing any rise in normal consumer goods.
Poor Rob, he shares it.
Poor Rob, yeah. I'm not seeing any rise in any normal consumer goods and any staple goods. I don't feel a need to, we don't need to worry about inflation yet. And then all of a sudden, no, we did. I was really wrong. And I think this does tie into Musk as well, which is the level of income inequality in America has gotten so bad that I would argue that's the main cause of inflation, because the Fed keeps on having to raise rates, and they keep on talking about trying to lower workers' wages, but it isn't actually doing anything to decrease inflation. What's decreasing inflation when they raise rates, I would argue, it's one of those I cut off the water and the to the irrigation canal and the field dies. But what I was actually trying to get after was the locust infestation, right? Well, the locust infestation stopped because there's no more corn. It's one of those things of I flipped the switch and I think I've solved the problem without actually solving the problem, which is what caused the inflation is these rise, like a lot of companies and a lot of shareholders asking for ever increasing returns. And companies having to respond to that by raising their prices, which then finally resulted in workers. Because if you look at the average buying power, the purchasing power parity of the average American worker, it's still down over 60 fucking years. So it's not wages that are causing this. It is a mass amount of income inequality that has triggered this, but I was wrong about inflation. I thought we had it under control. I thought that groups like Blackstone would back off their buying spree, understanding that what had to happen. And lo and behold, yet again, I was reminded that the market doesn't actually know what the fuck is going on at any given point. Anyone who says, oh, the invisible hand of the market will solve this, no, it doesn't. The Fed, the United States government, had to step in to stop you from destroying the economy. Yep. Because you all literally were more than happy to jerk yourselves off until your dick was gone.
They don't give a fuck. Yeah. And David, to be honest with you, I thought about putting the American worker in this list to some extent in a positive way. Because this has been, despite inflation, to me, a big year for the American worker. There have been several union advances. There have been a lot of successes seen in holding the line against exploitation and demanding better wages and refusing to return to the office. And I'm you and I probably differ in this. I'm pretty much hybrid is the best we're going to get because of the species that we are. I don't want us to be a completely remote culture because I don't think that's how we're wired. And I say that as a full remote employee, but to be honest with you, if my boss said, I want you to come to the office 1 week out of every month, my ass would be up there enthusiastically because I like people and I like being around people and working with people. And we should do that. It's how we are fucking wired. But I love the fact that America has said, fuck no, we are not giving in. So I almost put the worker in this list, and they would have been in like the 5th or 4th spot, which would have overlapped really well. But I think you're right. Inflation, huge story of the year.
And again, by the way, I from the beginning of the year till now, I was wrong. I fully admit that.
Either of us say that phrase very often, so
no, we don't. And I was definitely fucking. I was off, and I did not see the train coming down the tracks.
Well, what you got for number 4, man?
Musk.
I knew it was coming somewhere. I knew it.
No, I mean, and again, to me, it kind of ties in with the inflation thing. I think that the Bezos and all the rest have hit. We're heading towards a point of, I think, peak income inequality where it just simply cannot sustain itself. I'm looking at Blackstone and I'm wondering what their interest rate payments are for the myriad of houses they bought that they're now making people rent from. It's I look at Musk as endemic of stupidity finally rising to a level where it simply cannot sustain itself. Yeah. Musk has been held aloft. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but I would highly recommend everyone goes watch and enjoy The Glass Onion on Netflix.
Oh God, it's so good.
It is.
We so enjoyed that movie. It's so good.
But one of the best lines was, "He's an idiot."
Oh my God. Yeah.
And the thing of it is that Bezos is at the end of the day an idiot. Musk is at the end of the day an idiot. Gates is at the end of the day an idiot. These are all idiots who we have continually propped up with mass amounts of money simply because it was convenient. And it's again everyone keeps on saying the market will regulate itself. I'm sorry. I think we've definitely seen a point where the market won't regulate itself. The market is in need of a direct correction from on high to say no. You all we gave you all enough rope to hang yourselves with, and you all have hanged yourselves. It's time to do something about this. We need to have a conversation about lending and how much money you have and taxation rates, because again, I feel like a lot of this was spawned, both inflation and everything else was spawned by the Trump tax cuts. I feel like most people don't realize how vital taxation rates, just like I pointed out like a few segments ago about how airlines exist because they're tax dumps. They're tax gain dumps for.
He means an hour and a half ago, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I said segments,
Oh,
not
segments.
seconds.
I thought you said seconds. I was like, damn, beer time is really getting to you.
No, segments ago, how airlines are, a tax dump for so many wealthy individuals. How we structure taxes and how we ask people to pay into society and into a functioning government and a functioning infrastructure is important. And I feel, but every time we try and do these tax cut schemes, we're like, oh, everyone knows how to spend their money better than anyone. I'm like, no, I'm going to be honest. No, you don't. No, you don't. You don't know how to, like, we're going to offer a tax rebate. Fuck that.
Right.
Spend the money on something that will generate more jobs and more economic activity. Don't give me a tax rebate. Go build railroads. Go put money into something useful, which I'm actually is actually going to be my number 3, which I think is a huge thing, which we actually haven't talked about in the show. But I mean, it's yeah. Musk is endemic of a problem, and Musk's purchase of Twitter just simply proves that stupid people will continue to suck up your money until you tell them no.
Hold your wad on that one, because I have a positive for my number 4. And my number 4 for topics of the year is the James Webb Telescope. I was looking for what I would deem the most positive story in my estimation of 2022, and the most positive topic. And to be honest, like, I didn't get to pay a lot of attention. I didn't look at every photo. Like, I haven't been as plugged in as I should be. I never am. It's one of the things that if I were to be a better human, I would pay more attention to space exploration news, right? But the tidbits and the dives into those teases of, look at this photo, like, holy shit, that's a photo. And I go, look, for me, it's just incredibly important to be reminded of how tiny and dust-like and insignificant we really, really are. And how broad and vast and unknown our universe is. And it was so cool to me to see those images happen in front of the whole world as a reminder that, you know, your fucking drama today is absolutely zip in the grand scheme of the whole universe. And as I guess agnostic is the best description for me, because I don't believe that there's nothing spiritual in the realm, but I'm also willing to believe there's nothing spiritual in the realm. It's just a nice reminder of, hey, your religion's probably wrong. And I always like anything that says that on a large scale. So I listed James Webb Telescope as my number 4, because goddamn, what an inspiring, cool thing to mix into all this awful shit that 2022 had to offer us.
And on to number 3.
And David has nothing to add to the positive topic, but number 3.
Well, no, because actually, like, I'm going to let you go first, but like, my number 3 is going to feed into your James Webb.
Okay. All right, good. So my number 3 was the midterm. And the midterm is a positive and a negative. So the reason I selected the midterm for number 3 in lineup mostly is positive. For me, a tiny, thin, stretched, tested, taut thread of dignity and hope is what I found in number 3, the midterm. So I understand, I'm politically savvy enough to understand, and I am a marketing guy, so I get it. You run the message. You're committed to the message. You never say die, you never say lose. I spouted weeks of bullshit about how we're going to do great. Everything's going to be fine. The red wave is a lie. The red wave is a misread. The red wave is a fiction. And then it turned out to be a lie, a misread, and a fiction. And holy shit, it didn't happen. Oh, looky there. And it restored just a itty bitty tiny bit of my hope for humanity in our culture of the United States. Rob points out the midterms keep offering entertainment fodder with Walker, Lake, and Santos. Holy shit.
Well, and I'm going to be honest. I actually had the midterms as my honorable mention.
Oh, look at you. All right. Honorable mention. I didn't know we had honorable mention. I would have made an American worker my honorable mention.
There you go. You already. No, right. So the midterms are my honorable mention simply because it turned out to be a nothing burger.
Yeah. An incredibly thin, as I said earlier, a tinier than Trump's dick majority in the House, and only the House. And Democrats gain in the Senate. And all I can do right now is hope, A, Trump is ruined for any kind of rerun. B, we get an amazing possibility and Joe Biden says, you know what, you're the best. I'm going to step aside. I'm not going to run for re-election. You do it. And
we can hope.
C, we need to ride this motherfucker till it is sweaty and put away tired. I am ready. Let's just pull out. Fuck it. Just do it. Have all the fights. Let's do all the fight. Give the whole administration to the same people that run the fucking Twitter account, and let's go.
Right.
What's your number 3, homeboy?
So my number 3 kind of links into your James Webb. Fusion. So for those of you who don't understand what this means, so fission we've had for a while, which is we can split an atom. That's how we actually had fusion reactors before we built the bomb. We understood how fission reactions could make a bomb, right? And of course, right after World War II, we started trying to figure out how to make a fusion reaction to make a better bomb. The thing is, we couldn't do it, which should tell you something. For the first time, just a month ago, we here in the U.S., not China, for once, fuck yeah. Because the Chinese have been doing a great job at pouring state assets into technological innovation. We managed to eke out, with not nearly as much money, a semi-sustainable fusion reaction. And here's what that means. So fusion is what powers our sun. Not fission, but fusion, right? Fission makes things go boom. And just heats things up and produces a shit ton of radioactivity. Fusion, on the other hand, is huge. Fusion means that atoms are at extremely high temperature fusing together. And that act of fusing together, instead of splitting apart like in fission, like fissure, fission, fusion, fuse, also releases a massive amount of energy. That's how our sun works, but it has to be done at extremely high temperatures and in extremely specific situations. Now, one of the really cool things that we've been trying to do with fusion, right, which is the main thing, which is, does it take more energy to create the fusion reaction to generate energy, or can I get surplus energy from the fusion reaction?
Right.
And for the first time in America last month, we did it.
Yeah.
We got surplus energy from a fusion reaction.
It's a really nice way to feel like the species isn't entirely fucked. When you look at things like this and the telescope, like, you know, I took the kid, the shopping I referenced earlier, I took the kid shopping for a suit jacket because he and his friends have decided to have a cheeky black tie party for not New Year's. It's like on Tuesday or something. Like, it's totally unrelated, but they're gonna like make fun of fancy parties by having one. Yeah. And he needed a nice jacket. And I'm sitting there, you know, every day as a dad thinking, God damn it, what the fuck? I mean, you know, for those that know me personally, you know that I had a few weeks back a little bit of a startling heart thing, and I had to be rebooted. I had to have a human generated lightning bolt shot through my fucking chest. And they tell you, you know, there's an outside possibility this could kill you. This is it. And I had to literally sit there and think, well, fuck, I don't have anything put together. What if this is it? then you start thinking about shit like, well, what happens when I'm gone and he's all that there is? And this shit makes it possible to sleep at night. When you have fucking developments in energy and beautiful fucking images of galaxies, like, that's the shit that lets you actually see some hope for the kids that you're gonna fucking leave here, right? Like, it's almost impossible to feel hope in these times, and you are very good for bringing that into this list.
And I want to point out how big a development this is, like fusion. And we didn't talk about it in the show, and I wanted to try and work it in, but science and technology is not something we normally work into the show very well, other than me explaining how that Bohr fuck needs to fall off, needs to fall out a window. And for those of you who don't understand, that Bohr fuck is Musk.
One thing about doing this show with David is that the hate boner pops up when you least expect it, and it's usually related to something funny, and you're usually drinking a beer. It's a miracle that this beautiful monitor I use for work and the show has not been sprayed with smoke. It's you ready for number 2?
But I want to explain. Like, so the reason this is such a big deal is the fact that if we can consistently maintain a fusion reaction, which we're now on the cusp of doing,
right,
that doesn't just mean, oh, cool new power source. Right. It means limitless, clean, fucking energy.
It also.
I want to repeat that one more time. Limitless, free, fucking, clean energy. And not only that, it's going to spur a lot of innovation, at least in terms of progressing out into space, because here's the thing. We can make synthetic helium-3, which is one of the major...
It does
right?
That shit.
Yep.
It does that shit. It does the Star Trek.
It does do the Star Trek shit, because...
That shit.
Because fusion is huge. Not only does it mean that we can power all of America with clean energy, we can shut down every coal plant, every natural gas plant, all across the country all at once, and have it all be picked up by a fusion reactor. But not only that,
you are seeing the formation of a very, very throbbing purple liberal boner.
Right?
Sorry, hated for you, but science is winning. Yeah, all right. Did I finally lose you at the purple throbbing science?
I was going to be like, take the cock ring off, dude. It's that time.
You're going to hurt yourself. You're never going to be able to use it again if you don't pull that thing off of there. Let's go to number 2. What's the number 2, homeboy?
But I want to finish with the fusion thing just real fast.
God. Dave's going to continue to try.
One of the really cool things is it's going to spur space exploration, because we can make synthetic helium-3, which is the cheapest, easiest fusion catalyst that we have here on Earth. But you know what's like wretched with the fucking shit? The moon. Mm-hmm. The moon is literally covered in fucking naturally occurring helium-3 that we use to generate a fusion reaction. The space is wretched with helium-3. The only place where we don't have a bunch of helium-3 is down here on Earth. So as we progress with fusion technology, it's going to spur space exploration to be like, hey, there's a bunch of like helium-3 where I can literally just lean down and scoop it up and shove it in a fusion reactor and use that as the catalyst for a fusion reaction, which not only means that there's going to be spaceships going out to go harvest helium-3, there's going to be spaceships going out and being like, oh, I can keep going because I have helium-3. So I can keep my O2 generators and everything going because all I have to do is, hang out the window.
Leapfrog. It's beautiful.
And shove some more helium-3.
They had my science fiction ass at deuterium, right?
Which we know how to make. And we can make deuterium, but helium-3 is so much fucking better.
Down there, in that line of books, is the Star Trek The Next Generation Galaxy-class starship technical manual, which I know an unreasonable amount of information from. So when this shit started to hit the news, I was just like, oh, like I had the giddiest little nerd hard on. I mean, yeah, it's a big deal. I'm glad you put it in the list, man.
Yeah, I mean, like this is good fucking news that and again
And
that
to be
America
fair,
did
though,
this.
To be fair, we're talking about probably not our lifetime of maybe.
No, definitely. I think we're definitely talking our lifetime.
Ooh, so I hope you're right, but the experts are not quite as optimistic. We'll see how it goes.
They weren't optimistic that we could even find a way to fucking do this shit, and yet here we fucking are. So you know what?
Maybe we can get lucky, and a complete total maniac like Musk will not be involved.
No, he will not, because Musk is an idiot and does not know how to do this.
All right, number 2. This is you. The way we're zigzagging our list. Number 2. This is yours.
All right, hold on. I gotta pull up my list again. Oh, Ukraine war. Is my number 2. This has completely reshaped world politics everywhere. This year, it completely reshaped it. China imagined that they might have a cakewalk into Taiwan, or not a cakewalk, but that we might be able to invade Taiwan and no one will. Oh shit. NATO was kind of fumbling around searching for why the fuck do we still exist for a while there, and now all of a sudden they're like, oh shit. Totalitarianism is still a thing. Russia is still a thing. One of the things that's really come out of this that I got to give credit for Zelensky for, that I feel like might gain steam, and I feel like is something. There's a seed planted, and I wonder if it will grow. Because Zelensky has correctly pointed out that the United Nations is not useful anymore. And I'll be the first to point out, when we invaded Iraq back in 2002, we completely steamrolled over the United Nations. We steamrolled over them, and we built the quote unquote coalition of the willing and all this other bullshit, so that Shrub could go and avenge his daddy.
I love that you still call him Shrub. I love that after all this time, after all these other way worse people came along, you still find a way to exercise a little bit of beef with
And I voted for him the first time. I want to point that out. I mean, like, I feel bad about that.
You bastard! See, I'm the yellow dog. Never would have happened for me. I fell out a Democrat, and I proceeded as a Democrat.
Remember that I used to work for the Republican Party. So, I mean, come on, give me some credit. The fact that I didn't vote for him the second time.
Well, you know, now it's perfectly harmless that you did anything about W, so, you know. Oh, but that's right. Rob, a fellow Republican, recovering Republican, voted for him twice. I think Rob has actually been in the office together with me at that second election. I don't remember.
But I mean, we
quietly lamenting his re-election with a couple of coworkers among our vastly Republican population.
But I mean, we steamrolled over that shit, and Zelensky has planted this very interesting seed, which is maybe democratic nations should form a new coalition amongst themselves, a new supranational organization like the UN, but stronger and with rules. Because the thing is, the United Nations has definitely devolved into
it's impotent.
It's devolved into a more functional League of Nations, like what preceded the last World Wars. And Zelensky's idea is very interesting, which is it doesn't just need to be NATO. It doesn't just need to be CETO, the Southeast Treaty Organization. It doesn't need to be these bilateral, but maybe democratic nations should form a body amongst themselves. And not only that, not only should it form this body, it should also be able to enforce amongst its members to say, no, that's not a democratic ideal. Mm-hmm. You need to stop.
Yeah.
And because Zelensky, and here's the cool thing where I look at Zelensky, and honestly, if there's a seminal figure of the beginning of the 21st century, I feel like it has to be Zelensky. And here's why. Because Zelensky is taking very common ideas that I feel like have been out there and has condensed them and distilled them into a form which needs to be talked about.
You're
In the course of his country being invaded.
You're talking pretty long game there because
Yeah.
Beginning of the 21st century, you're talking like when we get to the end, like 2090 stuff.
I feel like Zelensky is going to be the Churchill in the same way that Churchill was probably the seminal figure. If we had to pick the single seminal figure of the 20th century, I would say it would have to be Churchill.
Shit, I think you're right. Oh, wow.
I know. And I think that if we're going to have to pick a seminal figure of the 21st century, I think it's going to have to be Zelensky, because Zelensky is throwing out ideas about what needs to happen to secure some sort of stability in the world. And I think he's throwing out the right ideas, which is, because he's looking at the European Union and saying, look at what Orban is doing in Hungary.
Yeah, right.
Look at what the quote-unquote Justice Party is doing in Poland. And they're trampling over democratic rights. Now, granted, the Poles hate the Russians enough that they don't give a shit, right? They're just like, fuck it all. I don't give a shit. I don't, and like, fuck. Like, do the Ukrainians need like a fucking kitchen sink? Because I've got a bunch of them. I will literally rip them out of people's homes and give them to the Ukrainians if it will kill Russians.
I want to take a second to entertain Rob. Rob had a train of thoughts here. So I was in the Howard Dean camp, he says, or was it Wesley Clark? So Rob, to refresh memory, I was in the 04 Democratic primary a Wes Clark guy, 158%. And one of the big reasons for that is I wanted to see the Supreme Allied Commander debate George W. fucking Trump. I was ready. If we changed the debate to a 59 pay-per-view, I would buy a pay-per-view ticket to watch a debate between fucking Clark and Bush. I went to see Wesley Clark speak at Tennessee State University across the fucking street from where I just lived before I moved here. For 7 years, we lived across the street from this place I went to see Wesley Clark. And at the time I went to see Wesley Clark, I was a lost little white boy in a not white boy neighborhood. And I was always told, we don't go there. We don't stop there. And I got terrified by being lost after the show. But I got to meet Wesley Clark. And here are my takeaways. First, what a gravitas of a human being in one simple interaction. Second, Jesus Christ, he's tiny. Wes Clark comes up to my man boobies. He's so tiny. And you think of generals as being these enormous men. No! Wes Clark is the size of my son. And so, and yes, then we got fucking John Kerry. And let me tell you, as a member of the Wes Clark primary campaign, we had a lot of interesting conversations, and I really love the fact that we used to whisper about, hey guys, there's an Edwards problem coming. There's something buzzing about Edwards. Oh shit, that was real! And I'm glad we didn't get Edwards, but I will always be pissed off at Iowa for going first and all of their fucking old people choosing John Kerry. Because I believe that if we had nominated Wesley Clark, we would have defeated George W. Bush, and we would have had President Wesley Clark for 2 terms. The entire arc of history would have changed.
It's very possible, but given that it didn't, Zelensky, and I want to point out this, Zelensky has been, this entire Ukrainian war, it's revealed the Russians to be that fucking weak and inept. And
full of
what was always theorized, so I had a professor in undergrad who was a CIA photo analyst. One of his jobs was to look at pictures from satellites and try and figure out what the satellite was seeing. And
Sounds like
this
fun.
was back in the mid '80s. And to give you an idea, like the thing is that the writing was on the wall, we just didn't want to accept it. And the reason I bring this up is this: they kept on seeing these pictures of these semis backing up to the gates of Russian barracks, and they didn't understand what the fuck was going on. And then they finally got some defectors to tell them what the fuck was going on, which was the semis had the new recruits, the new conscripts inside. And they were backing up so they couldn't run away, so that the guys who were already in the camp could pull them out of the trucks and strip them of their cold weather gear and any equipment that they had, and then decide who would get their shoes and other things and who was going to be rape meat.
Nice. All right. Well, on that uplifting,
I mean, but like, I'm just going to point out, like the Ukrainians have done an amazing job of tearing apart this veil, but they've also, I want to get back to the main point. They've reorganized the entire worldview of what the West will allow to happen to periphery states like Taiwan, because the main thing isn't just that the Russians invaded Ukraine, it's that now the Chinese have seen that the West, because before they were like, maybe America will defend Taiwan, maybe they won't. Especially the Australians have been very much like dick in hand, being like, maybe I'll honor my like mutual defense commitments, maybe I won't.
right. Yeah.
They've made several statements that said they won't.
And
They've made a
at the
couple
end
of statements
the
that
day, I mean,
maybe they
is it
will.
fair to say, David, at the end of the day, that we're just seeing, the almighty dollar being the real deal. I mean, at the end of the day,
I think what we're seeing is the fact that
is impotent when it comes to Russia because we don't have the sack to stand up, and we're impotent when it comes to China because we don't want to fuck up all those cheap Chinese goods like that $100.
but the thing is we want to fuck up
Chinese-made jacket I just bought for my son today.
but the thing is we want to fuck up the microchips that come out of Taiwan less. And I think that and again, what did the Ukraine provide us? Nothing.
Wheat.
Wheat. That's it. We've shown that we're going to look at totalitarian powers that want to expand their borders for shits and nationalist giggles, and be like, nah. China, you were worried about whether or not the 7th Fleet was going to steam into the Strait of Taiwan and fuck your shit up? By the way, you now have an answer. Or better yet, I'll just sit off the coast of Okinawa and fuck your shit up from there. Because I don't actually have to get involved, do I? I just have to make your shit that much fucking harder and make you bleed slow. Like they're doing the Russians.
Elbow into your long-winded, tipsy ass and take my spot in number 2. And my number 2 is U.S. domestic terrorists. So, for me, the thread of the story of U.S. domestic terrorism is second to my top topic, which we'll get to. And it's based on importance. It's based on the reality that what we're dealing with is an existential threat to every single fucking thing, including the greedy bastards that only care about money. If some of these right-wing fucking rich, greedy motherfuckers think...
How you doing, Mercers?
Yeah. If they think that they're going to come out of the other end of the white nationalist terrorism regime effort with anything that they like intact, right-wing populism would like to have a word. And here in Michigan, we've recently had a lot of news on that because we've been issuing the sentences to these pieces of shit that planned to kidnap our governor. And I'm absolutely unsatisfied with the lack of life sentences because there's a fact that a lot of people that know a lot of shit have pointed out these motherfuckers in 15, 20 years, when they all fall out of the prison system, are going to be more radicalized than they were now. We should be throwing these stains on humanity into the darkest forgettable hole forever.
Welcome to Florence ADX, motherfuckers.
Die in prison, and they're not going to, and that is bad fucking news. So my problem, and maybe my solution, is that when we are retirement age, these pieces of shit are going to be fired up to try again.
And they will.
What we need to do is build a republic that is so brutally ready to fuck these people up. Because while they were in prison, we made it our job to fuck them up. And currently, I'm not happy with the response that we're seeing, but I think we're gradually building there. And if we can get another Democratic term, whether it's Biden or somebody way better, we might be able to crack down and crush these pieces of shit, as is going to be necessary if we're going to keep the free and proud republic that we thought we had. So it's an important story, and that's why I put it at number 2. When you hear number 1, you'll understand why, but that's my number 2.
All right, so it's your turn.
All right, number 1. Here's why. Your number 2 is my number 1, Putin's war. So Putin's war for me is my number 1 choice because of everything that you just fucking said. Everything about the wake-up call to the world, and this is why I'm very curious about your number 1, but the wake-up call to the world that's being had here. So for me, domestically, you have the reality that the Republicans and the right wing, the Qs, and whatever you want to group them as, have basically entirely sold out the concept of understanding who is the enemy. And I realize that I'm sitting here in all of my nostalgia with Russia's the bad guy, Russia's the bad guy, Russia's the bad guy. Russia was always the bad guy. But they are. And the fact that we have an American major political party that's willing to set that aside because Russia, A, helped them gain power, B, helps them to defend power, C, may have directly helped them gain a congressman in New York, and D, identifies so much with their white Christian nationalist concepts. It is a clear, present, red alert fucking danger to the world. And I am really glad that this war happened so that I could remind people on a regular basis of who the enemy is. You got to flip it. You're doing backward again. David's had this flag backward like for 6 months. I haven't really told him anything. There you go. There you go. So to me, it's nice to be able to have casual daily conversations with people with the shock value of, well, now we've at least learned that the Russians don't remember who the fucking enemy is. And I really feel like we're at this point where we have to say, look, this needs to end, and I would love to see us gain the balls to call their bluffs and let them find out if the rusty-ass doors even open on their nuclear silos. So that's where I'm at. My number 1 is Russia, Putin's war, which you took a much more noble, lofty view of as the Zelensky thing. I think you're right about that. I think all the same reasons that you said about that are my converse dark side reasons for citing this topic.
No.
The biggest thing for me this year is this fucking war and what it is teaching everybody and what it's revealing about everybody. Because if you look back at the pandemic era where we managed to find the time, the money, the resources, all the shit we needed to get through shit, and you look at these sniveling Republican cowards that want to stop backing anything that we would do to support Ukraine, fuck them. And
Right.
they are showing you the true colors of the party who has no values, no morals, no ethics, no interest in anything they sell to their fucking gullible piece of shit, dumbass fucking trailer park base. They are liars, and they will do anything to hold on to power, including going and entirely examine every curly hair that grows out of the taint of Vladimir Putin with their personal fucking mouth. And every one of these pieces of shit is not only un-American, but unhuman when they make excuses for Russia. And for me, it's the biggest story, the biggest topic.
Buka would like a fucking word, you cockmongering sons of bitches.
David, what's your number one, buddy?
SCOTUS.
Oh, okay. I'm here.
So here's the deal.
Continue.
200 years of the motherfucking Republic.
This topic makes total sense for you as a number one. I just need to say this is
I know, right? 200 years of the motherfucking Republic. We've had some bad justices up on the bench, right? The Amistad decision that's up there. The Locke decision. Literally, when we cite a bad court, we cite the Locke decision, right? We're like, oh shit, Jesus Christ, what the fuck, guys? Like seriously, like what were you drinking? Were you all literally drunk? Like there's literally been commentary in legal circles about they might have all just been fucking drunk. When they made the Locke decision.
I love it.
This court is so fucking unhinged. It's unbelievable. There's a reason for the Warren Court, right? So for the court that gave us all these civil rights acts, right? There's a reason. There is foundation and logic in the Constitution, in the law, in the custom and history of the United States. What we have seen from this court is, for the first time since the Civil War, and I want to point out, the Civil War, the court blatantly said, listen, here's the deal, guys. I could make a decision, but I might get hanged.
Okay, yeah.
So here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do what the nice federal prosecutor tells me to do. And they made that clear, right? They made that really fucking clear. They're like, no, we're in the middle of a civil war, and yes, this is in violation of the U.S. Constitution, but it's a civil war, and I don't want to die. So, I'm going to make some of these decisions. And we acknowledge that. The thing is, in law, we acknowledge that. We're like, you had a gun pointed at your head, didn't you? Like, yes, I had a gun pointed at my head. Very much so. But these decisions, there was no gun pointed at the head, right? There was no civil war. There was no crisis, right? The only crisis is this imaginary created conservative crisis.
Right.
The Dobbs decision, first and foremost. What the actual fuck? We legally we had a detente. We had an understanding. Everyone had an understanding. You can futz at the edges of abortion, but you don't outright ban abortion, right? You can futz with the edges. You can be like, 20 weeks, you need to have surgical license, blah, blah. You can futz with the edges.
Yeah.
But you don't outright, literally jam your dick in the meat grinder and be like, yes, grind harder. Oh. You don't do that. We had an understanding that this was not what was going to happen, right? And lo and behold, Alito jumps in and starts citing Witchfinder General of Charles the First. No, not Charles the First. James the First. James the First of England. James the Sixth of Scotland. Just to clarify. and starts citing a witchfinder general as reasons why women don't have reproductive autonomy. Holy fuck! And then we turn around, and now we have a case which, by all means, should have been moot, right? About web designer. I don't want to make fucking wedding sites for gay people. Have any gay people asked you to make wedding sites?
Fucking crazy ass twat. Like, that blows.
No. Then instantaneously, at any other point in U.S. history, moot. The case is moot. You have no case. No one has done anything against you. But the state said the state can tell you that you have to go jump in a fucking river. Did the state actually show up to your house, drag you out of your house, put you on a bridge, and say you have to jump in a fucking river? If the answer is no, then you can go fuck off.
Yep.
You have no case.
So generally speaking,
I mean, the Supreme Court has gone.
I would call this a miss for me not making the top 5 because, I mean, I don't know where I would have put it among mine, but I'm so glad you brought it up because, goddamn, you're so right. Like, the legitimacy is blown.
And the sad thing is, Roberts, who is kind of a dick. Let's just be honest. Roberts is a palatable dick. He's a dick with honey on top. If I have to fellatiate this, at least it's sweet.
I mean, in some cases,
and then you have Alito, who's just like,
pour
the bitters on, pour it on, put some used fry oil on top of my penis before you have to, like, yes. Like, Robert's is like the Dom who literally, like, every sub looks at it is like, no.
Dick and honey on top, dick in a blender. David, I got hard limits. That's Rob's contribution.
See, the thing is, I feel like every 18-year-old prostitute that Alito has ever abused also probably had those and just didn't figure out how to report it to the police. Yes. I'm going to go there. I'm going to go park the bus. I'm going to go hang a sign.
You can always count on you. That was a fantastic list. I invite anybody that has been joining us this evening or who watches this later, dump in something that we forgot. Throw us a comment about what we forgot, because I'm sure it's been a long year. So I'm sure we forgot some shit somewhere. Yeah. But honestly, I think that the two of these lists combined, what does it come out to, like a top 8 or something between our two lists? I think that's a pretty good rundown, man. Now, I will say, you can find it out there. There are plenty of good news lists running around. It's the time of lists. This is the week of lists. Everybody makes their lists. There are 2022 lists this year.
Make a list.
It's not all a total loss. This year has been filled with plenty of triumphs. We touched on a couple of them tonight. So that pretty much brings us to the end. That's the last one of the year. Isn't that crazy? This is the second year doing this crazy shit.
And look how far we've come.
Yes. We've gotten better at some of the things, worse at a couple of the things. But the one thing that we love is folks coming in, hanging out, having a good time. For those that never heard the pitch, David and I already did this. This was already the thing we did in our spare time.
We're going to do I just want to clarify. We're going to keep doing this, regardless. We're just
Absolutely.
This is our bored Thursday evening. What do we do Thursday evening? I don't know. Let's go, yell at a bunch of people and drink. That sounds like fun.
I give it to you, and I give it to you. But no, it's been a really fun year. I'm so glad that so many folks have joined us over the course of 2022. Looking forward to 2023. And of course, I have to admire the dedication of my friend there on the other side of the screen, because every time I have bargained with him to try to negotiate a skip for a holiday or maybe we shouldn't do the show this week, David is willing to hold down the fort.
I'm still here.
Yes. So even if you can't, both of us.
Look at this face.
Always
Look at this face. I'm still here.
And fair warning to Rob, who's been with us for the evening with his comments. When I do make it out there to the Lake Coast, it's highly probable that you'll end up live on the show with us on Thursday. So let that shit again. Anyway, folks, we've come to the end. We are way over the end. This was a nice long episode, but hey,
I mean, it's the last year episode. It's entirely appropriate that we be over the end. It happens.
So with that, we will say thank you, and as always, good night,
Good evening,
and
and good luck.